What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto has the ability to erase chakra? If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. The small boy ran from one alleyway to another, dripping sweat and blood as he went. His thoughts at this time were, why me? It's not like I ever did the villagers any wrong. Those pranks were not that serious. He had encountered a drunken villager a few hours ago, who summarily smashed a bottle over his head while he mumbled. It may very well be troublesome, but my wife said it has to be done. We have to teach the demon a lesson so he knows who is boss. The drunk had then staggered on in his lazy meandering way, leaving behind a stunned, both physically and mentally, boy, by the name of Uzumaki Naruto, who spluttered out. Why me? A million curses on drunken villagers, they have always been annoying. What with the chasing of me, although I knew they hated me, none of them has actually smashed a bottle over my head before. While he was fuzzily speaking, the large gash across his scalp slowly but surely started closing over, with but a small gout of steam. Naruto then stood up and resumed his normal trek back to his lonely apartment, flitting from one alley to another, which he had lived in since the age of 5 years. Long-winded explanation here. Skip if you're sick of these Kyuubi introductions. While the human body is a literal living breathing miracle, there is not usually a force within it that allows for near spontaneous regeneration. Where the young Uzumaki differed from the norm was not in his blood, as a genetic irregularity passed down through the generations, but in a form of energy that existed inside his body. This energy was unlike most. It is theorized by some that the only sentient creature that could have created humankind would have no corporal body. That is to say, it would be a completely spiritual entity. If one takes this as fact, then this energy in Naruto is very similar to what could be termed a god. The humans who came to know this energy named it Kyuubi, the nine-tailed demon, off the fox. Considered to be the strongest amongst its brethren, who were ninefold, the Kyuubi was, and is known as a malevolent force with the destruction of humanity its only appreciable goal. One swipe of a singular tail could level mountains, another create a tsunami. Power the likes of which humans could barely, if at all, comprehend. This demon had at its claw tips. It is unknown why this Kyuubi would appear from time to time in the history of man, other than to lay waste to as many cities as is possible. After doing such, the Kyuubi would disappear from whence it came, only to be seen when the next time for a little disaster was ripe. The country known to have the spirit and essence of fire, and thus was named Country of Fire, particularly loathed the nine-tailed, as its last 3 occurrences had been within the borders of fire. It is partially for this reason that the various shinobi of multiple countries banded together under their own most powerful, to form hidden villages in many countries. This is where the hidden village of Kohohagure enters into our story. The citizens of Konoha are believed to house the spirit of fire. Their teamwork is second to none and they value the life of their own above all other things. As a young shinobi from a prestigious clan stated, "Those who do not obey the rules are trash, but those who abandon their friends are even worse trash." The shinobi of Konoha live by this code. They consider their lives sacrificed for the defense of their home and people to be a worthy end. When the Kyuubi attacked Konoha, many shinobi sacrificed themselves to delay it, and prevent us from reaching their loved ones, safe in the village hidden in the leaves, Konohagore. They were also delaying the monster, so their strongest shinobi, the Yondaime Hokage, could enter the fray. Enter he did, and after a no doubt epic battle, managed to seal the demon away. His own life was expended to seal it into a newborn baby. The Yondaime asked for the child Naruto to be viewed as a hero, the one who would bear the strongest imaginable burden for the sake of the village. It was not to be. Most of the villagers would not forgive Naruto for his existence, as he is a constant reminder of their loved ones who died in the Kyuubi attack. A few fools even believe he is the demon itself, sealed into human form, and would like nothing better than to dispose of the demon once and for all. This is the life in which our young Jinchuriki, demon container, has been for the past 10 years, hated and shunned by most. The current leader of the village, Sarutobi the Sandaime Hokage, is perhaps the only compassionate soul, as he agreed with the Yondaime's original plan and implemented a law stating that no one could speak of Naruto's demon to those new not. Specifically those of the younger generations. By doing this, the third hoped to give Naruto a fighting chance of friendship with those his age, even if the older generations hated him. This was not to be. The children saw and felt the way their parents and elders treated Naruto. Therefore most shunned him as well, even when they knew not the why of it. This is the situation Naruto has been living in for the past 6 years, since being unceremoniously ejected from the orphanage at the age of 4, when he could walk and talk reasonably well. Suffice to say, he was not a happy child, nor loved. Long-winded explanation done, read on if you wish. He had been focusing on the Ninja Academy since entering 2 years previous, as it was the only real achievement he felt had true merit. I shall become a shinobi of the hidden leaf. That will show everyone how great I am. Nobody else is needed for my survival. Also, my pranking will be so much better when I can shoot fire and beat on anyone who tries to interfere. Once home, at his stinking, squalid one-room apartment, he sat on the bed to plot nefarious deeds. After some time he decided to re-attempt the jutsu he was learning from a scroll he stole from the library. The head librarian would not let him into study, under the pretense that he was too distracting, with his near-fluorescent orange jacket and pants known as the Kawarimi no Jutsu. This jutsu is well known for being one of the most useful in and out of combat, as it allows for quick relocation in the event of the current location becoming untenable. It is a perfect technique for stealth and surprise attacks, which are the trademarks of the shinobi. The ones who practice enough, or possess unusual talent with the jutsu, can even learn to use it without the 4 hand seals usually required. Naruto knew all of this. He read it in more direct from the illicitly acquired scroll. A shame for him that he could not seem to perform the jutsu no matter how he tried. Most attempts resulted in no result at all. More chakra forced into any one seal did nothing, or at best resulted in a short breeze wafting throughout the apartment. He even tried less, but found he simply could not use such a small amount of chakra at all. Throughout his observation of the technique execution of his fellow academy students, he realized the amount of energy they released for basic jutsu was about 1/10 of the lowest amount he could use. Also, he noted that the students would be exhausted after a mere 1-hour training session in ninjutsu, whereas he had gone 8 hours straight in an attempt to force the Bunshin no Jutsu to work. This led him to realize that even though he was just a child, he had more chakra capacity than his Chunin teachers did, which was simply too much for the basic jutsu with his lack of control. After a long and fruitless training session with Kawarimi, he decided to redirect his efforts into a jutsu that required far more chakra to perform, to test his capacity and prove that his problem was the minimal chakra requirement of the academy-level jutsu. The problem was that he did not know any high-level techniques, and even if he did, it would be unlikely he would have the control or experience to pull them off. As he could not learn any clan techniques from having no clan, the decision was made by Naruto that cold day to create a training technique that used as much chakra as possible. He extrapolated out loud, "Yosh, it's decided. I will make my own jutsu, perhaps many. The problem is that I don't really have any idea how to do that. Not much point in modifying someone else's jutsu. This will be a completely original jutsu. The problem is that none of the hand seals do exactly what I want, and multiple seals would be too hard at the moment. More training would help, but time is of the essence." Even though Naruto has been mistreated and uneducated so far in his life, he has a mysteriously good understanding of the language, both written and spoken. This will be explained in more depth later on in the story. That is, if I can keep motivated enough to continue it. This is difficult. I'll just use a seal in each hand, the modified ram seal in the right and an equally modified Karana seal in the left. The Karana seal is a one-handed seal, forming a fist with the index and pinky fingers sticking upwards. It is a seal for suppressing and driving away demons and demonic energy. In this case, Naruto is using it with the ram seal to focus and increase his power, while the Karana seal expels the random bursts of Kyuubi's chakra floating around in Naruto's own pool. Naruto discovered that with these two seals in combination he could temporarily increase his power, while actually increasing his degree of control by about 40. While this in itself was not a jutsu, he could use it preceding one to let him more easily accomplish the technique. He attempted his newly named Fox release in combination with the Bunshin technique and accomplished a single clone which was smaller, unmoving and of a lighter hue than Naruto himself. Shanaro. That should have worked, curse it all. It really should have, shouted out the energetic blonde. He then proceeded to stomp the unmoving clone into oblivion. At which point his foot encountered a seemingly solid doppelganger, which let out an inarticulate grunt and twitching motion before poofing out of existence in a cloud of smoke. To which Naruto said to the world at large, okay. That's really weird. It created a failed clone as usual, but it had a real body? Not receiving any answer from the world, or the inside of his room, he repeated the process, with similar results, except for the clone being slightly bigger, and closer in looks and skin tone to the original. He attempted his newly created and named Fox release with the Kawarimi, however there was now a definitive result. The item he attempted to replace with started to glow blue, then flared red and imploded, sucking a fair amount of air into the depression. He experimented with the released Kawarimi and figured out he could implode objects, including a painfully damaged toenail, or superheat them, depending on the amount of chakra he filtered with the Karana seal. He decided to call it a night. After all 5 hours of practicing a new highly draining jutsu modifier is too much for most, and enough for even Naruto. He ate a bowl of instant ramen thinking to himself, hated ramen, if it wasn't so cheap it would never be eaten here. He then showered, did sundry other nightly activities and went to sleep on his old, stinking mattress with its single tattered sheet and blanket. He woke up every few hours, and trained for half an hour each time, as is his usual practice. The newly developed technique, Fox Release, was unused throughout the night. His usual fruitless attempts to force the academy jutsu to work were sufficient for the night. By 6 o'clock he finally abandoned the futile attempts at a good night's rest. Naruto got up, did those sundry morning activities, then set off for a run around training area 44. He didn't want to run around the village, as he might then encounter other ninja training. Since the drunken man who had hurt him yesterday had definitely been a shinobi of the leaf, he was becoming especially wary of them. He ran laps around the training area, dubbed the Forest of Death, until 8:30 a.m. Then Naruto started his usual one-sided conversation as he ran to the academy. Yosh, time to get to the academy and watch all the idiots who can't listen get scolded by Iruka or Mizuki-sensei. Still, I kind of wish that this area was not forbidden. It looks like there are plenty of big creatures inside. Training in there would be a good indicator of my survival skills. Unbeknown to the young boy, there was a pair of eyes focused on his retreating back, complete with the spiral pattern he favored. The eyes closed, and were gone in a purple flash. Time for the academy. Better put the idiot mask on. Stupid grin. Check. Vacant look. Check. Yosh, that's one idiot mask for the day. Ah, there is Sakura, the Teme, that quiet girl, Bakakiba and the rest. The lazy bum is looking at me. Hi Shikamaru, how's things? Naruto loudly inquired, to which Shika drawled. It's troublesome, my dad came home drunk with broken glass in his hand. Mom nearly killed him before she took him to the hospital, and she didn't make any breakfast this morning because they are both still there. Your father, broken glass? Naruto whispered, before taking a seat as far from Shikamaru as possible. The lazy kid in question was thinking, wonder what got Naruto all hot and bothered. Ah well, it's too troublesome to find out, after which the child promptly joined his best friend Choji, sleeping. Iruka entered the classroom and called the roll with several highs from most. A HN from a certain dark-eyed duck butt hairstyle boy and a Yosh. Here Iruka-sensei from the blonde-haired, blue-eyed hyperactive academy student himself. Iruka then started with his usual repetitive drone on the history of Konohagore. Today he was talking about the cages, from the Shodiemi, who was well known for his wood manipulation techniques, to the Yondiemi, praised as the Yellow Flash, for his speed and grace on the battlefield. As usual, after about half an hour of droning, Iruka mercilessly questioned Naruto about his lecture. As is also the norm, the boy answered every question with perfect accuracy and clarity, all while doing so in a monotone worthy of Shikamaru. This ticked off Iruka to no end, as Naruto always seemed to sleep through his lectures, like a certain few other students, Cho, Shika and Kiba. Then, after lunch, during which Naruto has dried instant ramen, they went outside for taijutsu practice sparring. Naruto, through the rotten luck he usually has with such things, has to spar with the most powerful academy student, Kiba. They tensed up in preparation and Naruto decides to have some fun, so he confidently yells out, "Hey dog breath, bet you can't hit me if you try all day." To which Kiba heatedly yelled even louder. "Come on then you doby, my family techniques will rip you apart ha 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 ha." Not waiting for the instructor's signal to start, Kiba put his dog down, told it, "Stay back Akamaru. I can finish him with one hit," and charged forwards recklessly, arms held downwards, with hands in an open-handed claw-like style. Naruto just stood there, looking like an orange and yellow statue as Kiba bore down upon him. "Prepare yourself you loser, Gijyu Ninpo, Shikyaku no Jutsu." With that cry, Kiba's fingernails became claw-like, and faint wisps of his chakra were seen as he charged his energy to his arms and legs. Naruto finally moved as Kiba came within striking distance. He walked into the right-handed strike of his enraged opponent. As the attack landed, he grasped the offending wrist with both hands and pivoted his body around to the left, throwing the Inazaka over his shoulder. Said Inazaka promptly hit the wall 10 feet behind Naruto with a sickening crunch. The end result was Naruto with 5 small, yet deep cuts on his chest and a wounded, unconscious Kiba. He had hit the wall feet first, cracking an ankle, not having time to maneuver as Naruto had used his momentum for the counterattack. At this point in time our hero thought, everyone else seems to be unable to take a hit. If I can take the damage, and use that same damage to attack my opponent, it will make for a powerful yet easily learnt and highly unpredictable combat style. Might as well fight like this, but what to call it? I know, the seppuku fist, suicide fist, forgive me if the spelling is far off. The boy then noted, as Iruka took a still unconscious Inazaka family member to the hospital, that his cuts were slowly shrinking and actually healing before his very eyes. As he had been concentrating chakra to the area of his chest to better counter Kiba's attack, it seemed to accelerate the healing process. What Naruto did not realize was that his own chakra cleared a path for Kyuubi's own to come in and force heal the damaged area. While not realizing the why of it, he still understood that massing chakra in an area before, during and after being wounded accelerated his healing process. Suffice to say the young shinobi to be filed this information away in a file marked Personal Battle Style Development. Without a style or even techniques of his own to use and with no desire to steal, modify or borrow the abilities and hard work of others, Naruto's only remaining option was to create his own unique fighting style. One that was not rigid and unyielding from being passed down through the generations, such as the Hyuga-styled gentle fist. The advantage of the inherited power is that there is almost always someone to teach the ins and outs of the style. Someone who will likely always be better, or at least far more experienced than yourself in that same style, and thus always good to discuss strategy with. The disadvantage of that same power is twofold. Firstly, there has likely been a large host of people over a long time who fought against this power, and might have found ways to counter or nullify said power. Second is that over time, doing and teaching the same thing may result in stagnation and weakening of the overall power and ability of those who practice said power. Take the Hyuga themselves. It is unknown how talented the first members to develop the white eyes and gentle fist style. It is quite likely, however, their talent was far higher than Hyuga Negi, or Hiyashi for that matter, the two most powerful Hyuga alive today. It is definite, however, that they created the techniques, either from original ideas or modifications of existing techniques at that time. Therefore they had talent that the aforementioned two do not. That is to say, the original Hyuga had the strength of will and self-esteem to throw away the advice of their teachers and so-called betters, in order to create something new and wild, untested and free. Hyuga Hinata has this talent, to change the very fundamentals of the Hyuga power, from primarily offensive and crippling to primarily defensive. The true advantage with going out on a limb and doing something new, different and wild is that there is likely to be no known counter to the technique, as there has as of yet been no time to develop one. The disadvantage, of course, is not having enough time and experience with this new power to know all of its ins and outs, the danger and risk associated with its use. The author shudders to think how the first person found out the seal that was used for the Kyuubi happens to require the caster's soul to properly execute. In any case, back to Naruto. After the rest of his boring class, in which Iruka kept sending him angry looks, as in a spar it is not good form to wound the opponent, it is only a friendly match after all, Naruto went home, practicing his developing stealth and agility skills as he went. The rest of that week went as one could usually expect, with training solitarily, or so he thought, in the morning. The academy class in the day, with a pouting Kiba on crutches, to the long afternoon and night of jutsu practice and eventual, torturous sleep. Because of his self-control, Naruto appeared to sleep like a rock, but every night he had dark dreams. Flashes of red in the dark of night, the screams of the dying and that wonderful, warm blood. So much blood, enough to cover the walls and homes of all Konoha, enough for even his ponderous body to bathe in. As the 9 monstrous appendages writhed throughout the night sky, a primal roar is heard. Then the 10-year-old Jinchuriki would awake, to ponder these dreams of darkness. As he lay down to sleep on Thursday night, an event was fast approaching. The event that happens to be the consistently worst day of his young life. It was time to go shopping. Naruto awoke in the morning as is the norm for him. The expression, "at sparrows fart," have any meaning to you? Had his ramen with a muttered, "itadakimasu," and much slurping of noodles, various disgusting grinding sounds. He then did his usual morning activities before locking up his apartment, despite the rather large hole that had been previously knocked into it, and went to train outside the forest of death. Ah, this is the life, nothing to do today, as it's a field day for the Chunin teachers. Days in which the teachers participate in normal missions so they keep in shape both physically and mentally. Yep, things are great, exclaimed the hyperactive shinobi as his jacket split at the seams from his light warm-up stretches. To which Naruto loudly and vehemently yelled, "Oh no, no no no, this is just bad, now I will really have to go shopping today. Damn it, thought it could wait for a few days." During his running he failed to take note of his surroundings, a basic skill taught to shinobi of all rank. The glint of sunlight, such as that of a telescopic lens, went unnoticed by the young academy student. After he had completed his 3-kilometer sprint around the forest, he did some more light stretches, accompanied by more ripping and tearing of his already tattered jacket. Naruto then sprinted off to the village to find the appropriate shopping area for food and shinobi wear, gear. "Hey, there is the Ichiraku ramen stand," Naruto loudly exclaimed to himself as he was walking through the village. "I guess it would not hurt to get some food and ask them if there are any good places for shopping for a lot of ramen ingredients. I might as well try making some ramen myself, surely it could not cost more than the usual instant junk." As he said this, he was thinking, "Won't be able to buy any non-orange clothing this time around, there will not be enough money, but it does not really matter. It's a good training exercise wearing the hideous color." After being unceremoniously kicked out of 2 stores, Naruto found the perfect place. Well, it was small, dank and tucked away into a seemingly forgotten corner, but he was admitted in. The reason for this became apparent when the owner, an old lady with clouded-over eyes, welcomed Naruto in. Yep, she must be blind, poor granny, he thought. "Yo, do you guys stock shinobi uniform for children?" Naruto loudly inquired, to which the blind lady replied, "Yes, young man, in the back on the left are some such garments. They are not the height of fashion these days, but are made to last." Naruto thanked her, then went to inspect the stock. There were the average items, but what caught the orange-hating young boy's eyes was the fishnet uniform, with a durable-looking tanned trench coat. Think mini Anko outfit. He liked the outfit because the fishnet could be adjusted as he grew, and would be easy to clean. He has no access to a washing machine, and washes his clothes in the sink. And the trench coat, he could buy it long now and use it till it became ridiculously short. Another major plus in his eyes was that the entire outfit, with 2 spare fishnet sets in larger sizes, was only 350 ryo, roughly 1/3 of the money he had to spend. Not to mention the drab tan, black and lack of orange would make getting around the village at night easier, or so he fondly believed. Lugging the gear up to the counter, he told the old lady what he wanted, and she went through the tags on the clothing to make sure, which had differing patterns stenciled on them so she could differentiate the items. Being as there were literally hundreds of items in the small clothing store, this demonstrated the woman's mind was still sharp, despite the years, presumably, robbing her of the sense of sight. After she counted the money and bagged the shopping, Naruto ran off energetically, bags waving all around the place in search of a place to buy ramen kits, ingredients. He stopped at a store that had the look of being newly built and opened. The sign above the door read, "Akamichi Gourmet Cooking Supplies," with a small slogan underneath, "There is no substitute for good ramen." Naturally he was interested, as ramen was the only food he could generally afford, so he went into the shop and up to the counter. A rather large, happy-looking woman, whose face tightened momentarily upon setting eyes on her latest customer, said icily, "May I help you, sir?" To which Naruto cautiously replied, "Yes, please. Do you sell ramen supplies, or kits to make ramen? I have been wanting to experiment with different flavors for a little while now." The woman's eyes immediately lit up, and she loudly exclaimed, "Of course, dearie," to which Naruto mentally inclined an eyebrow. "We have some new make-it-yourself ramen kits, as new as the store is, only 350 ryo for a 1-month kit, and being as you are our first purchaser of the kit, I'll throw in another monthly kit for free. How does that sound?" Naruto was almost stunned, from the woman going cold over seeing him, as did everyone in Konoha, to her giving him a brilliant deal. Usually 1 month's supply of instant ramen cost him over 550 ryo, surprise surprise, eh? He gladly accepted, paid for the kits, and left with a, "Come again soon, dearie," from the now beaming woman, carrying them ponderously in his small, yet strong, for a 10-year-old kid that is, arms. He managed to get home, although not without incident. He had politely declined the less than sincere offer by 2 young shinobi, late teens of the Chunin rank, to help him carry the kits to his place. The shinobi, not about to be outmaneuvered by the demon, as they thought of him, asked him again, ever so politely, and insincerely, to help him with his shopping. Seeing that the men would not back off, Naruto decided to use his new secret anti-pervert, in other words breathing adult male, jutsu. He quickly set the boxes down, performed the appropriate seal, right hand in a fist with index and middle finger pointed up, other fingers grasping left hand in the same seal as the right, and cried out, "Henge!" In a flash of smoke, a stunning young pig-tailed blonde now stood before the insincere Chunin, wearing nothing but her skin, with only a few insubstantial wisps of cloud covering her assets. Suffice to say, twin geysers of blood propelled the 2 young men to the wall on the other side of the street, where they lay, twitching and bleeding. The expressions of their faces were identical, unfiltered, unconscious joy. Naruto was then to be seen jumping up and down in the air in equal, although non-perverted, joy, screaming out at the top of his lungs, "Yada, it worked, now I can henge properly," and all of those hours sneaking in and reading at Old Man Tucci's bookstore was so worth it, believe it. Had to put it in once. The boy suddenly stopped, glanced around to the left and right thinking, danger. Danger, Will Robinson? Well, not quite, but where from? He had his answer as he observed the surrounding populace. Around 20 females, some kuinoichi, others civilian, were giving him powerful, yet decidedly twitchy blank looks. One of them took a step forward once, twice, 3 times. That being enough for the jailer of the mighty Kyuubi no Kitsune. He grabbed his shopping and fled the scene at top speed, with an enraged mob of women chasing madly behind him chanting for the blood and execution of the perverted one. Thinking fast, Naruto used Fox Release with Kawarimi on a garbage bin as he fled. It started to glow blue as he passed by, and as the enraged women ran past he relaxed concentration on the Kurana seal, imploding the bin and sucking all the women in its general vicinity towards the previously occupied space. The end result was a tangled pile of disorientated women, a now safe yet still retreating child, and a number of dumbfounded onlookers. As the boy fled the scene, a flash of purple could be seen, flitting across the rooftops in the general vicinity of Training Area 44. The owner of said purple flash thought to herself, so that is where the Gaki went off to today. What an interesting kid, not even sure what that last technique was, yet it certainly worked. I might have to make my presence known next time he comes near my home, as he has been doing lately. Although he managed that scene well, I know there must be some resentment towards the village lurking behind those innocent blue eyes. It will be enjoyable to see if I can bring some of it out in the open, for a little fun. Naruto, sneezing repeatedly as he fled, knew not of the possibly sinister plans the mysterious woman had in store for the near future. He thought that the women must have been cursing him as they recovered from his surprise tactics. He mused, might have to rename that one to Gravity no Jutsu or something. Truly, it would not do to have anyone who did not clearly see it understand from the name how to copy it. A shame that I have to concentrate to hold the Fox Release while doing the Kawarami seals. Makes it hard to accomplish while moving like that. Oh well, practice makes for an easier escape route. Then once he was moderately safe, locked in his apartment, doing what was becoming easier and easier for the lonely boy, he started talking to himself, with his usual volume of course. Yosh, now I have ramen for 2 months, and clothing. Do not really need any more kunai or shuriken at the moment. There was about half a set thrown into my windows over the course of the last month. That makes almost all the kunai and shuriken I need now. Knew it was a great idea to paint big bullseyes outside my western windows. All right, that is the necessary shopping done for today, and, as he looked at the setting sun out of a window, it is getting late. Time for dinner, so time to make some ramen. He opened one of the kits, saw the instruction book and recipe book, which he skimmed over before beginning. He tried several unusual things in his ramen, from new lean chicken to little white meadow mushrooms. The young Jinchuriki usually was too afraid to eat mushrooms because of not being let in the library to see which were safe to consume. Despite his usual loud appearance, Naruto is not a fool, and he realized it would be very easy for a store owner to sell him deadly mushrooms by mistake. The homemade ramen was the most delicious thing he had ever tasted, putting the instant crap to shame, which he loudly proclaimed to the night at large. Luckily for him, his apartment block was empty of other perhaps intolerant neighbors, due to it being in a small condemned section of town that had been damaged and never fixed in the Kyuubi attack 10 years previous. After dinner, and the arduous process of cleaning up, which consisted of washing, drying and putting away the various dishes that had for the most part gotten little use over the years, Naruto collapsed onto his bed to think. Even though it was merely a poorly constructed frame padded with years' worth of newspapers scavenged from local garbage bins, complete with a moth-eaten sheet and blanket, it was what he had. Yosh, time for training tomorrow. Then there is the idiot barrage of the academy. At least Kiba Teme won't be as loud as usual. Bet that ankle of his will shut him up. 'Twas actually kind of satisfying to injure the arrogant fool. This must be what all shinobi feel while on missions. It's going to be fun indeed. Naruto did not even realize that he had spoken his thoughts aloud. And he is, as you no doubt all know, loud. This might worry the average person, if they realized they were talking to themselves, but not the energetic boy. No, he would simply think, and likely say that he is glad to not be talking with himself, as well as to. It is hard to make the young Jinchuriki down. He is like an emotional freight train, and no amount of loneliness can slow his progress through life. Of course, being alone is not desirable, nor is it easy, but Naruto had simply given up on the idea that there would be anyone in life who could and would actually want to be there for him. Even among those who would talk to him as a human being, instead of a demon, now numbering the Sandiami, the ramen stand owner and his daughter, the old woman at the shinobi store and the homely woman at Akamichi Ramen Supplies. The young boy never thought of them as a family. He merely thought of them as friends, people whom, for whatever reason, acknowledged his existence and worth in life. He had no concept of a family, and thus did not desire one. Seeing the other children with their families did not make him jealous, as it did the other orphan in Konoha. It made him relieved. These mothers and fathers only delayed their children from growing up and learning to truly live faster. So Uzumaki Naruto at age 10, 8 days into our observations on his life, is somewhat of an enigma. No close friends, with only 5 people in the world who even talk to him civilly, and no desire for those true friends or a family. His career choice is the life of a Konoha shinobi, the reasoning being that he wants to be able to injure others without punishment, and in the back of his mind lurks a desire to be strong enough to punish those who currently try to make his life a living hell. Those people he wishes to return the favor to. Becoming a shinobi is in his mind the perfect way to accomplish this goal of not revenge, but retribution. It is as they say, do not get angry, get even. It is for the same reason he does his little pranks, not for attention, but to make the life of those hated individuals difficult. Author's note. I love Easter eggs. Cannot eat much chocolate, but it's great for an occasional treat, nay. Hope y'all like the story so far. Not sure about my own opinion, better get back to it, ya nay. After his usual nightly activities, Naruto settled down for sleep in his usual impersonation, henge, of a rock, albeit a snoring, Naruto-shaped rock, but a rock nonetheless. This was done so to ward against possible stealthy night visitors stabbing him as he slept. The disguise was nowhere near perfect, but he did pump a little fox release into the henge beforehand. This made what was once a simple optical illusion into a semi-solid shape. Because it was made out of Naruto's own chakra, he could feel if the shape was damaged or disrupted. This should, in theory, give him enough time to wake up and dodge, counter an attack, or at least shift position enough so that it is a less fatal attack. Naruto could have set traps around his apartment, or even the building. He had learned plenty about proper placement and execution in his pranking time. The truth was, though, that he did not want to blunder into those same traps himself if he forgot their exact location, or hurt another person who happened to be innocent. There was also the feeling lurking in the back of Naruto's head that if anyone could get in undetected to kill him, that it would not be a bad thing to die. He may have had definite goals to work for, and be working hard to accomplish these goals, but the boy had no happiness in his life, no true joy. He found pleasure in watching others be embarrassed by his traps, or wounding others in combat. Something in his mind recognized this as unhealthy and surmised that perhaps it would be better off if the name Uzumaki Naruto drifted into fate. This does not mean he wanted to die, or be killed, merely that he had no fear of the unknown. As for Naruto, it could not get much worse, physically or mentally. Naruto did believe in fate, strongly so as well, but not in the way Neji does, everything is predetermined. I shall win because it is fate, etc. His thoughts on the subject revolve more around that the past is fate, written unchangeable fact. He knows that he was going to be born alone, with the hatred of the villagers and shinobi alike something to live with. However, the view in his mind is that the past may influence the future's course drastically, but so do the decisions that people make. For example, if he were content to be a civilian, some of those who actively hate him would be more content, not seeing him as so large a threat. However, Naruto will be a shinobi, because he shall not stop until it is so, come hell or high water. Tuesday morning 6 a.m. With the dissipation of Naruto's rock mirage, the boy in question literally rolled himself out of bed. His fading henge propelled him into his role, making sure of his awakening on time. He rushed through his morning activities, including dressing in his new clothing, and his last cup of instant ramen, with a mental grimace. The homemade ramen is much better, both in taste and nutrition, before locking up and leaving for training area 44. Once there, he started the usual laps around the forest after the usual light stretches. Only halfway around the first lap, several kunai attached to a bundled-up sheet shot out from the forest. As the kunai landed and unfurled the sheet, a young woman unfurled with the sheet. "Yo Gaki, what brings you to my home?" She was young, in her mid-20s, and wore the most coincidental set of clothing. Tan trench coat, fishnet undershirt, the same leggings, a light brown short skirt and metallic ankle shin guards. Minus the guards and replace the light brown skirt with black shorts, and you have Naruto's attire. Suffice to say, Naruto merely stared at this woman, who looked like she had bought the exact same clothing at he. They both did the staring thing for a bit, then at the same time, yelled, "Why are you wearing my clothes, Gaki, lady?" Which was followed by another good old mutual staring contest. The woman finally broke the now awkward silence with a surprisingly soft, "Yo, I am Mitarashi Anko, you are who?" To which the boy replied, "Uzumaki Naruto, in response to your other query. I am here to train my body, the other training areas are too frequented for my tastes. The clothes are new, purchased them at an old store yesterday when I could afford something other than an orange jumpsuit." Insert involuntary shuddering here. I do not mind orange, but not as the main clothing color. Anko made a skeptical noise and slowly intoned, "So, you like my clothing style and my home, though you really are not training rough enough. I could teach you to be strong, if you want." Although her seductive tone had little effect on the 10-year-old, he did wish to be strong, for the sake of justice. So he said, "Hi, I would be grateful, Anko-sensei." Those words sealed the fate of a certain Uzumaki. 2 hours later he was running laps around the forest of death, faster than ever before, while Anko ran behind spouting encouragement, along with snakes, kunai and just about every other dangerous object under the sun. "Come on, Naruto-kun." The seductive voice still had little effect on said boy, but added to the intimidation factor, which was the whole point. "You need to be faster or my snakes will catch." The momentary silence was intimidating. Just to fill it, Naruto hollered out, "Ah no no no, Teme snakes. You are so evil, hubby-sensei. Time to run Shanaro, not fast enough, time for a Kitsune Kai." With those words Naruto formed his fox release seals, one-handed ram and Kurana, and pumped his purified chakra into the legs. Stomping sounds could be heard, and every step the boy took smashed irregular indentations into the land. But the backlash for the force-injected chakra did speed Naruto up to about 200 of his normal sprinting speed. The sheer amount of chakra used was astounding for an academy student, who is not supposed to have enough chakra to use a basic Kaiden jutsu. See Sasuke vs Kakashi Genin test. Yet here he was, using twice that amount with every giant lumbering hop, that he took. Anko decided to keep up the pressure for a while, to accurately gauge his chakra reserves. It took half an hour of constant running and using jutsu for the reserves to fall below 10 and for the high stamina person in particular to be forced to stop, or face a loss of consciousness. Anko called out to Naruto. "Okay kid, time for a well-earned breather." Naruto turned around in mid-leap and reversed direction, bounding back to his new sensei's point of forced rest, then just about jumping out of his skin with nervous tension. He yelled out energetically as Anko thought, he has the stamina of the demon he is named for. Well, it does make sense, having to deal with it day in and out, that he has such an abundance of stamina and chakra. Anyo sa Anko-sensei, you were totally correct. This training is awesome. I am really pushing myself to outpace those damn hubby things you can summon with that cool jutsu. Can we keep this up for a while? I like that I had to think on my feet and adapt my new jutsu to fleeing. It was originally only a control exercise after all. Naturally, Anko was intrigued with this new jutsu, so Naruto explained why he had made the technique, and how it had aided him in the fight against the insane females, although he neglected to mention the reason for the formation of said insane female mob. Anko smirked at this, also neglecting to mention that she had been scouting the boy out. She had seen the entire incident. In truth, she found it highly amusing the ease with which the simple henge had soundly defeated two mid-level shinobi. They discussed the various effects the foxed Kawarami jutsu had on items of differing sizes and qualities. They found that while it would work on living things, the jutsu took a prohibitive amount of chakra to do so, and the defending chakra system could easily fight off the massed, yet poorly concentrated chakra. Anko stated, just to see if she could rile up the young Jinchuriki. You know Naruto-kun, you fight like one of the tailed demons. They use huge blasts of yuki, demonic chakra, to crumple things, even though only the Kyuubi was said to use unformed or raw chakra like that effectively. It's a bit funny really, you do have good reserves, but some already call you a demon. What do you think they will say when you fight like one? Anko was also testing Naruto, to see if the yuki that was no doubt lurking under his skin somewhere was affecting his brain and subsequent actions. She understood being considered a monster, as she still used the techniques of Orochimaru, she former Junin sensei, who is now a missing nin. Anko herself is Chunin level at the moment. Because of her reliance on the jutsu she learned from the hubby Sanin himself, she is an outcast even among the other shinobi. Few there were who would participate willingly on missions if Anko was with them, due to her past. The only one she really associated with was Morino Ibiki, and that was because he did not care about her past, only her current usefulness to Konoha. As the covert intelligence expert, Ibiki coincidentally happens to be the best torturer, physically and mentally, there is. He expects the full effort of all shinobi in intelligence missions. Because of all this, she preferred to go on solo missions, and often got the fun jobs, as she liked to call them. Specifically the assassination and spying missions. Although only Chunin rank, she regularly completed A-class missions on her own, and was expected to take the Junin test soon. Although some wished it were so, it was unlikely she would tolerate failure. Naruto, after some deliberation, opened his mouth and engaged his voice box while expelling concentrated bursts of air in order to communicate verbally with his sensei. Well, I would like to think the villagers would be happy. Me acting like the biggest and baddest demon would give them the perfect excuse to bring out the old pitchforks. However, that shall not happen, they will not have the chance. This is the style that is being created by and for myself, called the seppuku fist. It is not a clan-based style, or one I expect anyone else to be able to learn, simply because it is like committing seppuku for anyone who does not happen to bear the name of Uzumaki. I heal fast, and by concentrating chakra, with practice my probable healing rate should be near instantaneous by about the age of 21. With this style based completely on taking and surviving any and all hits aimed at the body, then using that inevitable attack to launch my own Renden combo. This will make the seppuku fist taijutsu style a powerful and unpredictable asset during missions. It is understood that this style will never be flowing, like a perfectly learnt style hundreds of years old, or even graceful, as the Hyuga's gentle fist is rumored to be. But it will work, and work damn well, and it will be a purely original style. Frankly, who cares what anyone else thinks, they all shall be able to see that I am not a demon, as using Yuki as a demon would, it becomes visible to the eye, and read. Even if I ever ranked up there in the power department, I know that human chakra is blue, and feels like normal energy, not red, which feels truly malevolent. Even stupid villagers will be able to tell the difference. If they cannot, no big deal. I will simply force them all to see that I am Naruto, not the demon they currently see. After this lengthy explanation, Anko was happy, although she could not quite pin down the why of it. Setting that aside for the moment. "Hey Gaki, you're 2 hours late for your little academy, you know," Anko stated smugly, trying to make Naruto panic then blindly flee the scene, so she could sort out her conflicting emotions. The boy in question merely calmly yet seriously answered, "That is fine, Anko-sensei. I am used to their punishment. If I do not let them get me for something, they ask a question that no genin could hope to answer. I will learn a lot more here talking to and training with you. Also, this is strangely pleasant. More so than eating ramen, meditating, yes, he does that voluntarily, or dreaming of beating that stupid Inazaka into the ground." Anko was touched to think the little Gaki would enjoy this training session, which had been a physical and mental torture for many aspiring shinobi. Specifically when she had attempted a brief stint as an academy teacher a year previously, brief due to the complaints of the students' parents that their kids were coming home with hubby bites and moderate cases of poisoning. She was also a little pissed off at the current teachers. While she understood the entertainment of mental torture, it should be dealt evenly out to a class, not singled out to a single boy. She dealt with these emotions the same way she dealt with most things since she herself was dealt with in the same fashion. She shoved the problem away and hollered, "Yosh, then go to the academy now to keep up appearances, then you can train here in the weekday mornings with me while I am not on missions." Contrary to popular belief, Konoha does not get 10,000 assassination missions every day, or advanced reconnaissance missions. Anko was off duty as much, if not more than on. Somewhat similar to the life of a soldier. Much of the shinobi life is spent waiting, and also similar to a soldier, the fast times are usually spent dying. With a "Arigato Anko-sensei, Yane," and a bow, Naruto exited the scene, with much running and flapping of arms. The day at the academy was about what he expected. The teacher, today a reasonably fair young man named Mizuki, singled him out only as he came in. Naruto was given one shiftily difficult question and one subsequent hour of detention, and then Mizuki turned his attention back to teaching the class. It was quite amusing to see an uncharacteristically quiet, even sullen Inazaka clan member in the seat the longest distance possible from Naruto's own, which happened to be situated next to two female students. Naruto's seat, this is, one brown-haired girl and another girl with pale hair, similar pupil lacking pale eyes and a seemingly permanent blush, as she stared using Byakugan, at Naruto, or noticed him glancing in her direction. The now tan-wearing boy was thinking, that is Hinata, I think. She seems less arrogant than most of her family, those cold Hyuga. Come to think of it, although she does not talk much, I have never heard her utter a bad word about me. Not even a single muttered demon spawn. I might try and do that friendship thing Anko was talking about. While Hinata was trying to control her fluttering heartbeat, at the blonde boy's proximity to her own seat, she caught a look at his new attire. The open trench coat did little to hide his thin body, and the fishnet clothing left even less to the imagination. He was not muscular, as 10-year-old kids rarely are, but there was not an ounce of fat on his skinny carcass either. This tantalizing sight proved too much for the young heiress, as she proceeded to swoon and then faint, unfortunately while leaning over slightly to get a better look at Naruto's chest. An unsuspecting blonde found himself knocked to the floor, with a smiling Hinata asleep in his arms, complete with a single miniature blood trail from her nose. After setting the both of them back on their respective seats, Naruto was confused, but resolved to befriend the girl later. She seemed to be good for a laugh at the very least. This new schedule went on for the rest of the week, with the incredibly draining training sessions with hubby sensei, to the boring yet important academy lessons, and finally back to the apartment for more jutsu experimentation. On Friday night, Naruto was practicing more on one-handed sealing, getting the repetitive academy lessons of the week out of his system. His attempts to befriend the Hyuga heiress had finally met with some success. The girl in question could now communicate with him for a full 2 words, or 3 syllables, whichever takes less time, before blushing and looking away. They now had lunch together too, which was only slightly awkward. This was due to the both of them wanting to eat more than talk, or stare and blush respectively. Although Hinata ate like a lady, whereas Naruto consumed until no more food could be crammed in, they both ate large quantities with equal focus on their food. The boy found it easier to focus on the academy instructors now. Even the droning intonation of Haruka's voice during lectures could not send the boy to sleep. After all, he did not want to look lazy or stupid to his new friend, like a certain pineapple hair-styled young man in their class. As Naruto had succeeded in using one-handed seals for the Fox release, the boy now experimented with using one-handed seals in his General Academy level jutsu. Unfortunately for Naruto, the seals required a much higher level of concentration to work at all and required complete mastery of the jutsu in question, meaning that its every possible use and subtlety had been planned out with time and effort. As Naruto still could not use a conventional Kawarami jutsu, although he could heat and implode various things with the modified version, the attempt to use one-handed seals with the aforementioned technique did not go according to plan. Imagine smashing an egg in half and holding the halves in each hand. Now grasp if you can, not spilling any yolk, diving that same yolk equally among the 2 halves and reattaching the halves together perfectly without spilling the precious viscous liquid. This is a reasonably accurate explanation of one-handed sealing, compared to 2. Naruto realized the difficulty of his newest endeavor as he attempted the one-handed kawarimi, right before he disappeared, only to rematerialize inside his wall. A shame that one of his legs was still outside that same wall. The now disembodied limb in question slowly squelched its way to the floor, wiping a trail of blood on the wall's rough surface as it did. Total silence was heard in the condemned apartment block, for all of 2, perhaps 3 seconds. Then, those as far as the hidden waterfall village felt more than heard an agonizing scream. The boy really let his lungs loose. Unfortunately, though most felt his agony on some level, there was nobody close enough to hear and render him aid. That is assuming any of the village's general populace would have helped him in the first place. After letting out some of the expression for intense pain, sobbing like a baby, Naruto smashed his way out of the flimsy jib wall, a kind of crumbly concrete-looking material used a lot for Australia's walls. He then promptly fell down, having no wall to support him, or 2 feet to stand on for that matter. Clutching the amputated limb, the boy dragged it, in between sobbing fits, towards his stump. After feverishly attempting to ram the leg back onto its proper location, he passed out due to blood loss. Flashback no jutsu. Earlier that same Sunday morning, Anko had Naruto using the academy jutsu, to see how well he could control their relative finesse. She had been both surprised and pleased when he had used his chakra as a stealth-like construct during the last week's training, that showed real thought and talent, not to mention good reserves. Her rarely administered approval was not to be doled out on his chakra control though, alas for Naruto. After completely failing the Kawarami, then creating a single clone via Bunshin that would not fool a blind man, as it was unspeaking and immobile. The henge, you ask? Well, that is where Naruto's luck completely deserted him. Forgetting the incident the last time he had used his latest working jutsu, he performed a stunning Oroki no jutsu, leaving an unconscious Anko, bleeding profusely from the nose. I know while she spied on him using the wide jutsu earlier she was unaffected, but the technique is more effective the closer the victim happens to be. After Anko's revival, and an offhanded comment by Naruto on her UAL preferences, the boy found himself surrounded by snakes, atop a large tree. In any case, Anko decided that Naruto would waste too much time training his control to the point of being effective in combat situations, and decided to teach him techniques that were based almost exclusively off power. It was a shame that there were few such techniques, so the snake sensei first asked Naruto if he had any ideas, after eventually dismissing the snakes, allowing Naruto to plummet from treetop to the ground, rather violently. To which the boy demonstrated his Kitsune Kai and its use with the Kawarimi jutsu. At that point he remembered his little one-handed seal experiment, so he promptly projectile vomited all over Anko and fainted, clutching his left leg and moaning as he went down. "Ah, damn brat, my favorite jacket too. She has several, all identical," mouthed off Anko as she used a minor water jutsu followed by an equally minor wind jutsu, her limit in both elements, to clean and dry her coat and fishnet clothing respectively. She had avoided the vomit by using a previously summoned snake's shed skin to replace with. Unfortunately, Anko is unable to learn the conventional Kawarimi, and had to adapt it to the secret ninjutsu move, skin molting no jutsu, replacing with a snakeskin, in nothing but her own skin. After quickly reapplying her clothing, she checked the boy, who was unconscious, although in a different position than before, with blood trailing down his nose. Deciding to spare his worthless life until he was at least conscious again, Anko bided her time. After about 10 minutes the boy awoke to a slightly less pissed and mortified sensei, who only said, "Gaki, never do that again, or speak of it ever again. Do I make myself understood?" "Hi, hubby sensei," Naruto mumbled with a red hue on his face. After the unmentionable incident, they worked on a new jutsu for Naruto. The idea was simple, using the aforementioned minor wind jutsu, Kamateachi, used by Tamari and greatly boosted in power by her battle fan, I believe, to pump a massive amount of energy into a wave-style attack. She said that the inspiration had come from her time fighting a far more powerful opponent, a slight understatement, but there it is, who could shoot waves of pure chakra to deflect solid objects, nullify chakra-based attacks and even implode a creature's chakra pathways. This jutsu would in theory overpower any attack, physical or jutsu, even able to kill humans, while nullifying their chakra using abilities. It had 3 steps, or different applications, to counter physical advances, thrown kunai, taijutsu, etc., chakra attacks and to kill a human, or other beast, respectively. The first was simple, use as much chakra as possible, firing out a pulse, think echolocation style, of pure chakra while trying to focus the wave as it hit objects to increase the damage and stopping power. This required much concentration and a different kind of control, not oft how much to limit for successful execution, as most jutsu are, but the amount and time, place to funnel 100 possible chakra into as the jutsu impacted against solid objects. This jutsu, properly executed, would be both a shield from aforementioned solid objects, and a staging point for step 2 or 3, as it is possible to switch from 1 to 2, to 3, in this order only, while still only having to attack with a singular chakra wave. The second, to block other chakra-based attacks, was subtle, relatively speaking. It used the same basic principle, the wave, but where it differed was directly before the wave struck. Before contact with the opposing jutsu, the wave user would launch a net-like chakra construct ahead of, yet made from that same wave. As the hostile jutsu barrels through this net, it sticks, and relays information back to the user, allowing them to detect the exact amount of control, speed, and specific element being used for the technique. This allows them to fire precise, or large and numerous, in Naruto's case, pulses of chakra from the wave, to disassemble or at the least weaken the technique, this all in the split second before it hits the chakra wave. Upon contact, the wave repels while the net worms its way through the technique from behind, where the centrifugal force from the hostile technique itself drives the net onwards. After sufficient netting and contact, the wave user simply floods the entire network with still more chakra to rip apart the hopefully severely reduced jutsu. It would appear to the naked eye that the hostile technique would hit a blue for Naruto, red for Kyuubi wall, before simply evaporating like mist in the midday sun. Without precise control, shooting the pulses before contact is impossible. Although the Kyuubi never needed it, due to his abundance of chakra, any human would find they needed to use more pulses beforehand so they could use far less chakra after contact with their wall. Any human except for a Jinchuriki, that is. Luckily for Naruto, whose shocking chakra control was the reason for the wave in the first place. Because of the linked body of the host and captive demon, and the specific nature of the Shiki Fujin seal, the fox's demonic chakra is constantly leaking into Naruto, or more specifically his chakra pool. This in order for his body to cope with the huge raw power output from the leaking teapot that the Kyuubi has now become. So with more input, chakra, the jutsu could still work. Even with less pulses, it would merely be harder to defeat high-level jutsu, like a Kaden Gokakyu no Jutsu Gamma style, with it, due to their high destructive energy output, compared to chakra input. As Naruto gains in control, likely to be a long, slow and agonizing process, he can insert more pulses into the jutsu, increasing its effectiveness. Also, the more he uses it to defend against a specific jutsu element, the more effective it becomes, due to his increased understanding of its destructive force. Therefore, he would likely use it against many fire techniques in practice, being in the country of fire, yet few wind-based techniques, making it more vulnerable to that specific elemental type. The third level of the newly christened Chakra no Taijutsu is absurdly simple via comparison. I found one name that seems appropriate, literally Shield of Chakra. Deceptively simple, eh? Okay, I was too lazy to find a shocking name, Sumi. It is thought Japanese grammar goes somewhat like this. If wrong, once again feel free to sue. Is without a doubt the simplest of the three to perform and execute, and for that same reason is the most dangerous. Its design was and is to kill the opponent, via frying their entire chakra circulatory system. It utilizes both the wave and netting from wave level 1 and 2 for successful execution. Fire the wave, envelop the person or people in the net, drain their chakra into your wave through aforementioned net, then inject it back in with shards of your own, dying chakra, infused in it. This dying chakra is just that, dislocated energy which seeks its own energy signature, yet it has been modified to reject all other chakra, including fellow dislocated shards. It will search as much of the surrounding area as possible, before losing momentum and feeding on itself in desperation, the same way some movies I have seen with snakes eating themselves. I need to zap parts of my memory into ambiguity, too many odd thoughts. This condenses the chakra, causing the opponent's own chakra to reject it, and attempt to force it out of the body's system. This results in what happens often to recently condensed or superheated, frozen objects, in this FIC anyway. Namely implosion, taking a hefty chunk of native chakra, flesh, bone, sinew and the rest with it. This causes a chain reaction with the other slivers in a split second, resulting in a corpse that could easily be fit into a matchbox. Although usually Naruto would need fair control, Genin Sakura level control, to properly create and utilize the shards. With a little experimentation he could use his own unnatural chakra supply, pre-shattered into his own system to do the same job, injecting little, kitsune time bombs into the target. The third wave without the shards would merely burn the target's extremities, namely their skin. The damage inflicted this way is minor, unless a truly excessive amount of chakra is forced into the jutsu. Any of these three levels can be switched on the go, such as level 2 to level 1, or 2 and 1 together, to combat a jutsu with hidden kunai, or a puppet-style attack. Objects controlled by chakra strains. The area the jutsu affects is also controllable, although difficult to control. It is similar in execution to the Hyuga Kaden. Emitted without seals, directly from any number of tenketsu, chakra expulsion points. The power is defined by the amount, the area of effect by subtle manipulation of said tenketsu as the chakra exits. For example, using only one tenketsu in the throat would result in an expanding frontal wave. Narrowing the tenketsu would minimize the area of effect, to a possible dinner plate-sized wave directly in front of the user, expanding as it went. Of course, Naruto and Anko were merely attempting a definitive result for the first level of Ninpo, Chakra no Taijutsu. Ninja Arts, Shield of Chakra Technique. After nearly exhausting the young Jinchuriki's pool, he managed to stop an attempted spin kick to the temple, via Hubei-sensei. After stopping the attack cold, Naruto grunted as he hurled out both arms, now shouting out with the effort. Insert constipated shout here, Ruak. Hurling Anko through the air, into and also through 3 trees and finally into a cliff. After a mutual period spent recovering, the two discussed the success of the first stage. Tricky to learn, impossible for most, not as much for the initial energy expenditure, but the drain of having to maintain or increase said expenditure. The sad thing is that if an opponent were strong enough physically, he could force the opponent to stay on the defensive or be crushed. Think of Fujin and Rajan, the stupid brothers in the fillers facing down Ino or Shika, can't remember which one. Or simply imagine a huge Akamichi arm about to crush the Chakra notate user. Good luck there buddy, time for me to flee. The same opposite applied however, as is evidenced in young Naruto. If he put enough pure power into his defense, it became an attack repelling specific, or all contacted objects with violent force. The master and apprentice continued with the wave training until Naruto was completely exhausted. Then Anko unmercifully beat into him the importance of knowing taijutsu, as after using the wave, Naruto would be vulnerable to attacks. Rather than having to waste multiple tates, she felt that the boy needed to be fast and strong enough to engage the target of the wave before they could counterattack. Naruto's own style helped greatly here. Who would imagine designing a taijutsu style to receive all attacks, and a ninjutsu to block them? His best advantage in battle would be the greatest of any nin, surprise. In his case though, the seemingly conflicting style would constantly baffle an unwary opponent, quickly subduing or obliterating them. She punctuated the taijutsu practice with more use of the hidden snake hands, one of the relatively few ninja arts she commonly used. After training Naruto to the ground, they stopped for a lunch break, Anko going back into the forest. Don't ask what she eats in there, Naruto wandered over to a certain ramen stand. They met again after lunch, in the glade near the Forest of Death, to continue. Anko was surprised that the boy had regained enough chakra to use more waves, approximately 4, one of which blocked her attack fully, another that repelled her a short distance, along with several kunai. This is how they spent their leisure time that day, and despite Naruto's loudly voiced complaints, both were there simply because of having little else to do. The boy's natural, speedy recovery rate helped a great deal in training. 20 minutes on, then off was more than enough for both to continue. Kai, this time skip jutsu is blatantly stolen, can't remember who from. It was described as a lazy way to do these sort of scenes. After a quick rest, ended by more use of the hidden snake hand no jutsu, the unlikely pair began their afternoon training again in earnest. Whatever either of them said or acted like on the outside, they were currently exactly where they wished to be, and in the best possible company. Anko knew about the Kyuubi of course, having fought against the Biju in her time. She had been leading a literal suicide attack on the Kyuubi in the first day of the assault, in the hopes of affording enough time for the elite Anbu to mobilize. A singular tale, courtesy of Kyuubi, had crushed the land surrounding the ninja, barely brushing by Anko while mince meeting the rest of her team. It was only through sheer dumb luck that she had survived, and without being brutally maimed. The woman cared not that Naruto was the Kyuubi jailer, or so they say. Her life had little meaning or purpose, until her observing the boy as he trained around Area 44, her home. She had been running on autopilot. The boy had somehow effortlessly shattered her automatic, stale life. He had led a spark of energy into her personal space, and she had latched on, like a badger to a human leg. This happens to be really goddamn hard, to those who have not had the misfortune of the experience. As for the young Jinchuriki, he neither knew about Anko's past nor cared. Having no past to speak of himself, and little real hope for the future, beyond vague dreams of becoming a powerful Junin to stop the cold glares of the village, through the mutual respect and fear that comes with power. He lived completely in the present, all his thoughts centered on the now. Not even 5 minutes ahead in a fight would Naruto contemplate. His strategy in battle or life was always thought of and executed on the fly. As a result, he accepted Anko because she accepted him, and thought not at all on the why, focusing on the addictive adrenaline rush that coursed through those spider-web thin veins, filling the body with blood, delicious blood. Ahem, back to it. The two people, both spurned by the village in general for events entirely out of their control, both lonely, and though now realizing it, in need of a friend to talk to and be with. They had found this in each other. After the hard, yet mutually satisfying, think whatever you like of my wording, remember their relative age here people. I know you're all sick, because I am, and as I am the only thing that truly exists, you are all simply weak carbon copies of me, alike to Naruto's Bunshin attempts. Really, this is what I think. Well, not in truth, but hey, I had you for a second there. Back to it, eh? Okay then. The two went different ways. Anko back to the Forest of Death to shower and sleep, Naruto to the park in an attempt to find Hinata, whom he had been conversing with quite well lately. Once he had gotten the girl out of her shell, to some extent at least, he found her personality, timid yet not afraid, pleasant. It certainly beat the heck out of the cold eyes of the various villagers, and multiple ignorant shinobi. Having found Hinata at said park, Naruto decided the best way to greet her was to leap off a tall tree and alight next to her sneakily, like a ninja. Unfortunately, his luck seemed to be malfunctioning that day. As he landed, the traitorous left leg buckled under his weight and the boy sprawled ungraciously on the ground next to the Hyuga heiress. In truth, Naruto had noticed during training that his leg was giving off uncomfortable twinges, or more specifically the area where his fishnet legging was missing, yet he thought little of it. A distinct advantage to being the demon's jailer was the increased healing system, to the point of miraculous regeneration. Normally, even a strained ligament would be healed within minutes by the Kyuubi's chakra coursing throughout the host body. Therefore, he had ignored the warning signs, the result being his current less than grateful entry into the park. Hinata had started as Naruto crash-landed next to her, but soon calmed down when she saw the only person in her mind silly enough to do something so foolish-looking. "Oh, hello Naruto-kun, how are you?" After picking himself up, then plopping down onto the ground, Naruto replied. "Not bad Hinata-chan. Insert blushing Hinata here. Just training to make my newest jutsu with sensei. It's really awesome to finally have a technique that suits my style. Large and damaging, ahihi." Rubbing his head sheepishly, as he admitted his lack of subtlety, something usually required for a shinobi, Naruto almost missed the nervous glance that Hinata gave him. He did catch it and asked, "Nay, Hinata-chan, more blushing, did you want to ask something?" Hi, may I ask?" Naruto tensed. Even with Hinata, his only like-aged friend, he did not want to explain the chakra no tate jutsu before it was perfected. Do you think UCC could help me with tea training?" Sure Hinata-chan, you do not even have to ask, what with specifically? I heard Iruka-sensei droning about the Hyuga's powerful taijutsu style, so what kind of help is needed? Taking an emotional leap into space, Hinata threw herself on the fire of possible ridicule to explain, with many a stutter, to Naruto about her family's style and techniques. That she did not truly fit in with them and wanted to expand her knowledge of taijutsu and general jutsu to become more unpredictable in any situation. After all, the ninja is not traditionally the strongest meathead out there, but the tricky shadow, never truly seen, as it ghosts around, assassinating and pillaging upon command or whim. The Hyuga clan is renowned for being the strongest, which while important, is not the true goal of the shinobi. Hinata knew she would never accomplish as much as was expected of her in the clan techniques or style, thus she wanted to become like a Kenpo, Chinese martial arts, user. That is to say unpredictable, not drunk. To this end, she had to experience more attack patterns, from a wide variety of opponents in order to find the right moves to incorporate into the Hyuga Juken style. Naruto was surprised to say the least. The heiress of the most powerful clan wanting to learn other styles? He was correct in assuming that this would be a blow to the prideful Hyuga when they found out. This reason, along with the desire to help his friend, and divert some of Anko's near-sadistic attention, made him utter. "Wow Hinata, it is an honor to be asked for help. Tell you what, Hubby-sensei will have some ideas. She is really smart, perhaps even something to throw those Hyuga guards off your trail." Hinata agreed and the two went back to their separate homes, Hinata's two branch member guards collecting her as she went. One of the guards, an older woman, thought to herself, didn't know that the girl swings that way. Better not let Hiyashi-sama find out, or there will be hell to pay. She had heard some of their conversation and noticed Hinata blushing and stuttering quite badly, as she only usually did with her father, though for different reasons obviously. As is usual with many, she saw what she wanted to see, adding 2 and 2 to come up with 5. After the Hyuga walked away, Naruto dispelled the henge he had been wearing, which had made his appearance into that of a civilian blonde pigtailed girl. Think of just before the fillers, Naruto's attempt to evade Sakura as the Baikachu latches onto her ass. Stupid Hyuga guards, didn't even use the Byakugan to check for a henge. Guess I shall talk to sensei before the academy tomorrow. Homewards bound, Naruto was ensnared by the heavenly, to him, smell, wafting from a certain ramen stand. After hollering out a greeting to Tuchi and Ayame, his daughter, he sat down next to a pink-haired girl and inquired as to the nature of the delicious aroma. "Ah Naruto, you are just in time for the latest ramen flavoring, shark fin ramen, take that kisame. I assume you would like a bowl?" After a loud and resounding "Asu, yes sir, I believe," Naruto impatiently bounced around his seat, driving the others slightly mad. After receiving his food, spouting "Itadakimasu," he then proceeded to noisily, yet efficiently devour the ramen bowl. The pink-haired girl found herself disgusted by the sight, yet fascinated by the sheer amount of food going in. If eating contests were the yoke of the shinobi life, Naruto would be the Hokage and Ino would forever remain a genin. After polishing off his third bowl, Naruto slowed down, though by no means stopping, to talk to the pink-haired occupant of the seat over. Did I mention the bubblegum pink hair? After the mutual name exchange and introduction, Naruto, learning that her name was Sakura, asked her why she was at the ramen stand. She told him that it was a place to unwind. In her home her mother and father shouted a lot, at both Sakura and each other. For her part, Sakura noticed the odd clothing choice of the young boy, though she did not remark on it. Recalling a previous encounter, Sakura did not really want to know if the blonde was any relation to the crazy purple-haired Kuinoichi Ino had told her so much about. Ino is pretty much the gossip guru in this fic, she likes to know everything. Flashback no jutsu. 2 weeks ago. Walking along the streets of Konoha of a fine morning, one might hear a minor commotion. This came in the form of two distinctive young girls stampeding down the street, complete with cries of, "Ino pig," and "forehead girl." The two were putting so much attention into their insults and power walking race, think Naruto episode 3, that they missed a purple-haired woman walking along the street, eating from a dango stick. The resultant collision made the woman drop her last dango ball onto the ground, where she blankly stared from it, to the speechless young girls. "You two are so dead." With that, Anko lunged forwards and Sakura plus Ino ran for their very lives. After much mayhem, including both girls being dumped into a large dumpster, and trapped there for half an hour by two vicious-looking snakes, Anko went back to the dango stand for another stick or 20. Wonder why so many high-level shinobi are not rich. Wonder no more, as they all have debilitating addictions. Think about it, Asuma has the ciggies, Anko the dango, and the rest. Kai. After Naruto left the stand, the conniving wench that is 10-year-old Sakura met up with Ino and whispered a dastardly plan into her ear. They were to spy on Naruto to see if he was Anko's relation. The two snuck around the street, finding Naruto quickly, his attention being captured by a shinobi weapons store, with many fine quality implements on sale. As he tried to enter though, the owner shooed him out, saying, his kind, was not served in there. If you need a reference, think on how black people were treated in the olden day America, with some areas like laundromats having whites only, and other such racist shit. Forgive my language. There are only two things I hate: people that are intolerant of others and the Dutch. Another something for whomsoever can state this not so subtle movie quote. The two girls were surprised. They had not seen anything to indicate that Naruto was a bad guy. After watching several of his attempts to buy various things, they actually felt some empathy for the trench coat wearing blonde. After he finally bought something in a store, a make-it-yourself ramen kit, he headed for his residence. Naruto used a monthly kit each week, as they were cheaper than he was used to, being ripped off for the instant variety. The boy ate as much as possible. Which is, as you all no doubt know, a large amount indeed. They were now shocked at the condition of Naruto's flat complex, being one of many buildings that had been condemned after the Kyuubi assault due to little water pressure and electricity. Konoha had never renovated the area because of development on the village outskirts, increasing the size of the village and having to rebuild some of the defensive wall. After their usual loud power walk to their respective homes, in which their usual spirit was decidedly lacking, the two said good night and entered their own dwellings. Both thought, time enough tomorrow to spy more on Naruto and see if he has any secrets. 7 o'clock Monday morning, the following day. This morning finds Anko and Naruto at it again. Cough. Training, that is. Hey, I happen to be a sick person, deal with it. Even enjoy it, nay? First were light warm-up stretches, during which Anko would occasionally strike out, forcing Naruto to block with whichever limb happened to be handy. Then came the usual running by Naruto, with his chakra wedges to elevate and speed him away from the rampaging Kuinoichi. They also allowed him to spin and twist in midair, avoiding almost all of the summoned snakes. Arg, that one got me in the ass. Last but not least was the wave training, where Anko would throw several kunai, shuriken and lastly herself at the boy, while he would attempt to repel them all with as few chakra waves as possible. As the wave, once fired, billowed outwards at a controllable speed, it could last more or less time depending on the concentration of the user, weakening as it expands due to the increased chakra requirement. Naruto was improving with the wave off the Chakra no Tate. He blocked 1/3 of the weapons, slowing or changing the course of all the others so they did not damage him. Imagine a knife being thrown through thick jelly, losing momentum and accuracy. He even managed to halt Anko in her tracks and repel her cursing form about a meter. Anko had her revenge, of course, using the Senejashu, hidden snake hand. I finally looked it up, after the wave broke down, wrapping the unfortunate boy before tossing him into a nearby tree. "Never let your guard down, Naruto-kun," she teased. "You should have been ready to evade and counter-attack then. The wave doesn't use that much stamina, just a lot of chakra." She is underestimating the difficulty of the wave, as she cannot herself perform the jutsu, as do most who can give advice on a subject without participating in the work. Naruto thought this was merely another training method, to increase his stamina as well as capacity and wave abilities, as indeed it was. Albeit not a conscious method on Anko's part, but a method nonetheless. After their Herculean, for Naruto, effort, the boy rested for a while, then ran off saying, "Oh crap, late for the academy, see you later hubby-sensei." Usually Naruto cared not at all for how late he was, but today was different. Iruka-sensei had promised that the latest student would be cleaning the academy toilets after school, as the cleaner had quit in disgust. Disgust, I say, for the appalling graffiti that a certain blonde student had artistically attached to the walls and floors, after learning that the aforementioned cleaner hated the demon brat. Suffice to say, Naruto had little intention of cleaning up his own handiwork. It would be, in his view, a colossal waste of time. He also wanted to talk to Hinata about training. Anko had told the boy she would only train him, that if he wanted to help the girl, he could do so alone. While this might deter most, not Naruto, he wanted to help Hinata and gain an experience of the Chakra no Tate at the same time. Although the boy was late, more so than most, there were still 2 missing class members. He sighed in relief as he took the seat next to Hinata, his newest and second friend. She had kept the seat available by being uncharacteristically curt with anyone who moved to sit there, stating quickly, if timidly, that the particular seat was taken. The last to arrive were Ino and Sakura, who had both been shocked to the point of temporary paralysis at the level of sheer power Naruto had displayed. You guessed it, they spied on his training with Anko. The 2 girls were told that they would get the cleaning job, despite their loud and vigorous blaming of the other for being late to class. Naruto snickered softly, bringing the attention of a certain boy upon his blonde head. Inazaka Kiba, seeing that Hinata had been saving the seat for none other than the class dobi Naruto, was peeved. No, it was safe to say the Inazaka was thoroughly pissed off. Having a crush on Hinata as he did, Kiba couldn't bear to see her with Naruto, and as his ankle had been healed a few days back, was rearing to have another, friendly, spar with the blonde boy. Luckily for Kiba, or not, whichever the case may be, after Iruka went through his usual 2-hour drone, there was a taijutsu practice session, and by random lot, the feral boy had his chance for revenge. The word revenge is just plainly superb. In all ways, it is superior to justice. Guess you all know if I would be an evil guy in any anime, superhero thing, definitively. After being given the signal to start, Kiba used his Gijyu Ninpo, Shikyaku no Jutsu to become incredibly animalistic. What with the claws growing, not to mention his usual miniature increased incisors. In response, Naruto merely smiled open-mouthed, something he did not usually do, exposing his own larger-than-average, vampire teeth. Squaring off, Kiba launched himself at Naruto, who merely stood there, as before. Actually learning from his previous mistakes, Kiba stopped abruptly before reaching Naruto, jumped up and with a spin kick the blonde, kissed the earth. Gloating, Kiba taunted his opponent, not noticing the hand seals the downed boy made, a one-handed Karana and Ram seal, respectively. "Hey fool, you don't look so smart-assed now, do you? Hey, you don't even deserve to be here. You're just a dobi who can't even use the ninja arts." Kiba was almost strutting now. Naruto, still prone on the ground, turned his head, looked Kiba in the eyes, as he muttered, "Kitsune Kai," using both curled-up legs to spring fluidly to his feet and formed the quickly formed Kawarimi seals. As Kiba started forwards again, a rock shifted under his foot. It then imploded, pulling his body down to the ground, left leg first, so he was in a kind of one-legged kneeling position as Naruto's leg booted him in the face, with all the momentum the Dobi could put behind his own left leg. Suffice to say Naruto stopped then, as poor Kiba had currently managed to land on his already damaged nose, almost flattening it into oblivion. The academy nurse took him away, yet again, moaning and bleeding, looking like he had just been caught in a perverted act of dastardly proportions. This proved too much for our hero, who fell to the floor, shaking with laughter, and comments like, "Ha ha," got him dead center. Stupid dog breath. At this point the forgotten, nearly forsaken, dog Akamaru, hearing his master being insulted after being beaten, latched himself onto Naruto's left ankle, who didn't even notice. After a bit more rolling and laughing, Naruto picked himself up off the floor and began to walk away, noticing a weight on his left leg as he did so, although he couldn't feel the resistance. Looking down he saw Akamaru, whom he then removed and said softly to Wari, sorry, Akamaru, it was mean of me to insult your master, but he did deserve it, flaunting his clan techniques. I just could not resist using a personal technique. The dog yipped slightly and ceased attempts to attack the Jinchuriki, who set him down and went to watch Hinata and the others sparring. Ino and Sakura were as usual, fighting, friendly sparring. What sparring? With Ino eventually winning by yanking Sakura's long hair until she gave in to the intense agony. Never having had long hair, I do not know just how much yanking it would hurt, as opposed to having been kicked in the face. I do know all too well the pain of that. Hinata was sparring against another female, one Naruto did not know. They lightly exchanged blows and counters while moving at maximum speed, not fast, they're pre-genin you know. It seemed the two didn't want to hurt each other but still wanted to train seriously. The rest were generally using the academy-taught taijutsu skills, trying to beat down their opponent with those basic, yet effective movements. Uchiha Sasuke was facing Abarum Shino, who was merely dodging and blocking all the prodigy's attempts to beat him into submission. This frustrated the survivor to no end. None of his attempts were working, so he used a basic fire jutsu. You all know the one, to try and scare his opponent into fighting seriously. Unfortunately he aimed his jutsu to the left, which was the direction in which Shino dodged. Unable to stop, the Uchiha watched as his fireball hit the silent young man head-on. Amigot, I'm so sorry, are you okay Shino? Please don't be dead, please. Sasuke ran up to the smoldering form of his fellow academy student only to see burnt bugs? As he looked around for an explanation, he saw the two laziest students there, Shikamaru and Choji, who were supposed to be sparring against each other, talking with Shino, who looked a little bit miffed that his precious bugs were now burning. Shino then said, with his flat voice, "You should not have done that, Uchiha Sasuke, however if you want to fight." He then leapt into action, while the lazy bums Shika and Choji watched, awed as the Abarum fighter used his remaining bugs to leech away the chakra reserves of his opponent, while beating him black and blue with academy-learnt taijutsu. After an extremely one-sided fight, Shino stopped and gathered his bugs to him, they swept under his jacket. He went to stand by the lazy bums again, but when they gave him odd looks and a muttered, "Scary," from Shika, the boy moved off to stand on his own. Having witnessed the fight, Naruto walked up to Shino and leaned up on the wall next to him, neither boy feeling the need to speak. They stayed that way for a few minutes, watching the sparring, before Naruto turned to Shino and said, "Nice technique, it is good to see the Teme put in his place by his betters nay?" Shino raised one eyebrow, and let out an affirmative, "HN." After the sparring finished, Shino sat next to Naruto, who was next to Hinata on the end of the row. They did not speak much, but neither felt it was necessary. It was the beginning of a strong friendship for the two. Naruto explained his plan to Hinata. After his training, he would meet up with her at the park. They would use the Bunshin and Henge techniques respectively to fool the branch member guards, while finding a suitable area for sparring. As they both needed practice, Hinata would utilize new physical attacks, while Naruto would defend with the Chakra no Tate as best he could. The plan went off without a hitch. The young heiress had never attempted to cheat or deceive the guards before, so there was absolutely no reason to scout out with the Byakugan. After the training, Hinata would return to the park, Kourimi her bunshin, walk away with the guards, then dispel the female Naruto bunshin. The next day was the new norm for Naruto. Early starts, long training session, academy and more training, then late afternoon sparring with Hinata. He did not notice the two bright-haired girls from his class observing them covertly again, although Anko certainly did. Her thoughts at the time ran something like this: he has stolen two of the Uchiha kids' fangirls, it seems. How very amusing, I shall let him find out when he is good enough to sense them himself. While this was going on, another Konoha resident who favored the trenchcoat happened to be in the area. He was not there for training, or even spying. No, the young man called Aburame Shino was there on a hunt. A bug hunt, to be specific. The Uchiha's attempt to make Shino fight him had been successful, but at the cost of much of Shino's resident insectal population. He was poking about the forest, searching for the various required bugs to replenish his depleted stock. A single bug came to Shino, one of his scouts. It perched on his finger and Shino commanded off it, "Tell me." It spilled the secret. Thus the boy flitted quietly through the trees, landing on one near a clearing in the forest. He watched Naruto using his jutsu. Though no sound was emitted from his personage, Shino was impressed. He decided not to get on Naruto's bad side, as Kiba had consistently managed. The boy would be a real juggernaut one day, immovable and unstoppable, charging onwards against all odds. As it was, to a 10-year-old he was strong, like tractor, as the Russians eloquently put it. After early training, there was the academy again. Starting to wear thin on the young boy, the pointless hours spent listening to Iruka's hypnotic voice, sparring with others with whom he did not dare to use his techniques on. Kiba was an exception. This is mostly due to Anko's previous explanation of how the genin would be grouped in 3 years, namely the best and worst, average, etc. The boy was aiming for average grades, so he wouldn't be in a team with the lazy Nara and fat Choji. He did not want to be best or worst, having to be with either Sasuke or the loud Kiba in that case. Top average would have resulted in those whom he knew nothing about, always a risk for the prudent shinobi. Much better off with hopefully teaming up with Hinata and Shino, the only students he felt he could relate to. He merely practiced his seppuku fist style on his sparring partners. It was an effective way of learning another's strength, standing up to and taking their most powerful attacks. Finally, near fruitless attempts to master the academy ninjutsu, he had only mastered the basic jutsu for untying rope and the henge to date. 2 out of 4 is about average, nay? The only other thing to do was talk to Hinata about various things, from their daily sparring to life in the Hyuga compound. She was more talkative now that they knew each other better, though still timid, and would regale him with softly spoken tales of her childhood. Happy times spent with family, and old ones, most now passed on. The only close family she had left was her father, who was cold all the time due to her lack of skill in the Hyuga techniques. There was also Hanabi, of course, but the little girl had quickly caught on to her father's cold attitude, to Hinata and others. This was a reason Hinata was and is trying to gain strength, to prove to Hanabi that the Hyuga way is not necessarily the best, before her sister became too rigid, refusing to use any other jutsu, as did most Hyuga, like Neji. After the drudge of the academy, there was another quick 1-hour training session with Anko, who teased him about cutting the training short to see his girl. Turning a magnificent shade of red, Naruto screeched, in his most annoying treble voice. "She is only a friend, hubby-sensei. Geez, one would almost think you are jealous." After a satisfying time of snakes slithering rampant, as opposed to running rampant, Anko let Naruto go. She in the meantime, poofed off to her favorite dango stand. Damned addicts. After Naruto met up with Hinata in the park, using their decoy trick with the henge and bunshin, they found an unoccupied training area to work in. This day it was the Hyuga Pride Taijutsu, Jukin, versus the Seppuku Fist, Naruto's unorthodox style. It was not going well for our young subject, who was currently getting beat in black and blue. The idea of the Seppuku Fist is to not block, but receive all attacks, then counter, but the Jukin blocks Tenketsu, preventing jutsu and chakra usage in those areas. Meaning that by taking the attacks, Naruto limited himself to taijutsu, until such time as the Tenketsu opened naturally, usually overnight. This prevented the use of his chakra no taijutsu. The two, seeing this problem, experimented with using chakra expelled from a tenketsu before the Jukin strike landed, to absorb or block the damage. This was also progressing slowly. Hinata knew it was possible to expel chakra from any or all tenketsu via kaiden. But most ninja only learn to use the hands and feet. Meaning that it is very difficult to learn to use any other tenketsu, to the point of requiring years of dedicated practice. After the afternoon's training ended, Naruto had succeeded in not blocking, but reducing the impact of a singular strike. He flooded and compacted his chakra to the general point of attack before it landed. He had not the control or experience to do so for a single tenketsu, yet his way made it easier for them to reopen, only taking about 2 hours instead of a day. With time and practice, the boy would learn to focus and pinpoint the defense, maximizing its effectiveness. It would also, in theory, protect the vulnerable parts of the body from chakra-based attack, namely the inner organs. They called this jutsu the Chibi Chakra no Tate, mini, young shield of chakra. I'm not good with Japanese, as you can tell. The two said their goodbyes and went their separate ways, Hinata to Kawarimi with her bunshin, and Naruto to make some ramen at his residence. The bunshin had taken a reasonable amount of Hinata's concentration and reserves to maintain. Granted, it is not a huge requirement, but as with using weights, they do not get any lighter, despite numerous fics of people unmoving when they put on weights, then bouncing around 3 hours later. Yeah right, they would still barely be able to walk. It was good endurance training for the hopefully future kunoichi. This schedule was ongoing throughout the next 4 days. Naruto started to improve with the Chakra no Tate, both the level 1 and chibi versions. He could now block near half of the thrown pointy objects aimed at his shields, and slow the rest down to non-dangerous speeds. Anko he could hold off about a third of the time, only managing to repel her about once in a day. With the chibi, it now reduced all Jukin striking to a 2-hour tenketsu recovery, unless Naruto had a lapse in concentration, as he had when Hinata led him into a rope trap, swinging him upside down into the air, for her to hit a few times. She truly was showing skill, and was willing to seriously fight Naruto after he explained to her that they both needed to do their best, or the training would be pointless for the both of them. Insert a horrified Hinata here, at the thought of not training with her Naruto-kun, changing to a determined young girl, ready to beat Naruto bloody in order to remain his friend. It did not hurt, of course, his demonstrating to her his quick healing ability, after he broke a finger trying to block her Jukin with an open-handed slap. Hinata was improving steadily as well, her speed and general stamina was up, due to trying to keep up with the inexhaustible blonde all afternoon long. She was also more devious, trapping Naruto often and attacking from unexpected angles. All in all, both academy students had begun their path to power, or so they hope. On the fine morning of Saturday, the birds were singing, with their chirp, chirp and their tweet, tweet splat. Everything was going according to plan. Naruto had completed training with Anko in the morning, ate lunch. Guess which stand he gravitated towards? And can now be found with Hinata. The two were going all out, what with the Jukin versus Seppuku fist. Gentle fist versus suicidal fist. Watching from above, a sinister figure bided his time. He was furious at the fact Hinata wanted to spend time with the Dobi. His only thought was to defeat and humiliate Naruto in battle. This would, in his thoughts, force Hinata to see who was the better man. When Naruto was fending off Hinata's particularly vicious attack, he struck, with a cry of Suga, piercing fang. What resembled a twister bore down upon Naruto, who did not seem to notice. He continued to block Hinata's assault, his apparently calm demeanor only belied by the hardening of his usually tranquil eyes into icy orbs. Narrowing those orbs as Kiba neared, Naruto whispered, for Hinata's ears only, Ninpo, Chakra no Taijutsu. Hinata saw Naruto pumping an unusually high amount of chakra into the shield, even for his usual effort. To her eyes, a blue dome formed from a single tenketsu on the boy's back as the Inazaka impacted with the shield, errant blasts of chakra emanating in all directions. The shield was slowly being twisted by Kiba's rotation, warping and flexing, yet Naruto was holding on through sheer effort. He could not move away for fear of Hinata being hit. This standoff continued, Kiba attempting to drill through the shield, Naruto pumping chakra into it at a prestigious rate to keep it functional. In the end it came down to simple stamina. Naruto had more. The rotation of the Suga slowed and ceased, leaving an astonished Kiba hanging in mid-air for but a split second, before the wave of chakra blasted into him. Spiraling nearly out of control, the wave carried the terrified boy right into the tree he had been spying on Naruto and Hinata in previously. There was an audible crunch upon impact, as the unfortunate Inazaka had 2 ribs crushed by the impact. Hinata went off to get help, while Naruto bandaged his chest, with a spare bandage usually used in his own training. Kiba moaned and, panting with the effort, gasped out, "Why are you helping me, Naruto? Because you are not my enemy. I do not have any idea why you attacked me, nor if you were trying to get to Hinata, but if you put her in danger again, I will not be so gentle. You have been warned." With that, the blonde walked off, not wanting to answer any questions Kiba's rescuers would ask, seeing him there. Hinata brought back Hana, Kiba's older sister, whom she told she had heard Kiba crying out in pain as she was training alone in Training Area 5. Yes, it's a made-up area, Sumi. When it came down to it, Kiba said he had been training, perfecting the Suga, as indeed he had, in a way, when he spiraled out of control and into a tree. Again, not that inaccurate a statement. Naruto and Hinata, meeting up again in a different area, decided to take the rest of the day off. Naruto was tired and had expended almost all of his energy in stopping Kiba. As he left, his mind was remembering the way the shield tried to spin with Kiba's attack, how he had forced it to stop, keeping it solid. If it could be forced to spin the opposite way before contact. Although he did not realize it, this is a similar method to the Hyuga Kaiden. It is even probable that a rotating attack used on a shield of chakra is what gave thought to the original Kaiden. Of course, Naruto is not good enough to reliably expel chakra from every point, or even any one point besides the hands. He can do it, but not all of the time, more a fluke than anything else at this moment. Walking home with arms loosely swinging, head down, Naruto did not notice the person standing in front of him until he bounced off said person. "Oomph," was his inarticulate utterance as he rebounded off what looked like a solid human wall. He looked up, and seeing a massive version of Choji, apologized. "Sorry Akamichi-sama, I was not looking at the path." The big man boomed as the glass in nearby windows rattled. "That's okay kid, it happens. Where were you off to with such preoccupation?" Thinking for a moment, the boy replied, "Well, homewards bound, as I don't really have much money for old man Tucci's ramen right now." "You like ramen, eh? Hey, you must be the kid who buys so many kits from my new store, the monthly ones. Oh, and please call me Shuha. The sama sounds really old." The man placidly intoned, "Yes, ramen is the best Akeem. Shuha-sama, I am grateful to your store. Your homemade ramen lets me eat exactly what I want, all the time. Well, I had best be off, see you later." With that, the blonde ran off to prepare and consume some of his ramen, mouth watering at the thought. As Shuha watched him rocket off, he thought, not such an evil-looking kid to me. Anyone who likes ramen can't be bad, perhaps the council is just plainly wrong about him. The big man left to find his drinking buddies, presumably Ino and Shika's fathers. After his ramen, mushroom and rat, yes rat, some eat it, Naruto went through his nightly activities. Stepping out of the shower, he overbalanced and fell over. What the hell? The sun was not setting, late Sunday afternoon. It had already done so 20 minutes prior. A young boy was rushing a girl of equal age home after an excessive training session, in which the boy had acquired many bruises and cuts. There was reasonably extensive damage to his large tan trench coat, as well as his fishnet underclothing, although there did not seem to be any serious wounds. The girl by contrast was in good health. Her also large coat lined with fur on the hem not seeming to have any damage on it at all. She was though a little out of breath at the pace the 10-year-old boy was setting, as he fearfully and loudly proclaimed to the world at large. "Darvit, wari Hinata, I forgot the time when we both succeeded in our new jutsu. Your crazy dad is going to kill me, I just know it." At this point the boy was shivering in trepidation and more than a small dose of fear, terror. Hinata, in a calming voice said, "It's okay Naruto-kun. I will just tell Oto-san that it's my fault for wanting more ramen after training, even though that was your desire, before we realized the time." Yes you're right it is. Ah well what's done is done," said Naruto as he rubbed the back of his head sheepishly, as he does. The Hyuga compound loomed closer. The massive complex would have blocked out the afternoon sunlight, if there were any to be found, that is. As Naruto ran up, clutching Hinata's hand, nearly dragging her along, he saw an ominous sight. The Hyuga main family head, Hiyashi, was standing at the front gates of the compound, talking to 3 branch members there. As they neared, they heard him ordering the branch members out to find Hinata and bring her back at any cost. Oto-san Gomen Asai, sorry, we lost track of time at the ramen stand, it's just so. Hinata's timid voice petered out by the last few words at the stern look on her father's face. He told the other Hyuga to go back into the complex for a while he talked with his daughter. This included the normal gate guards. Hiyashi thought about all the words to say in this grim, in his mind, situation. The importance of the Hyuga heiress maintaining proper dignity at all times, even if she insisted on her friendship with the blonde. Her failure to do so, as she was carted to her own home by the same blonde, acting decidedly ungracious at such time. His musing was interrupted by a mere whisper. "Goodbye, fool." A part of the night coalesced into a man enshrouded in a long white cloak, forming the final handseal in an unknown set, before quickly extending his hand, palm open, towards the little group. As the mysterious figure once again whispered, "Fool," Naruto surged forwards, knocking the surprised and slow-acting Hyuga head out of the way while stepping squarely in front of Hinata. A blinding flash of light could be seen, as a streaming bolt of lightning erupted from the man's outstretched hand, arcing towards Naruto. He, however, had formed his own seals and shouted out as the man performed his jutsu. Ninpo. Chakra no Tate Jutsu. A domed cylinder of chakra formed around the boy as the lightning literally struck. It protected Naruto while sweeping behind him, also shielding Hinata from the blast. As both techniques collided, sparks of lightning splintering off the main bolt, Naruto slowly turned pale white, his own jutsu twisting and malforming at the frontal end, where there was direct contact. A mere splinter hit Hiyashi, who was knocked to the ground, unable to move yet still very conscious, seemingly in his own personal nightmare. He, the head of the Hyuga clan, strongest of Konoha, had done nothing while an assassin attacked Hinata and himself. Whereas a mere academy student was now defending his eldest daughter with all he had, which was proving quite a lot. Hiyashi even dared to hope, for a moment, that the boy could hold out long enough to outlast the jutsu. Sadly, it was not to be. The shield simply was not powerful enough to combat the sinister technique, and Naruto knew it too. Maintaining the walls of the cylinder for as long as possible, with a defiant scream Naruto released the frontal dome. As it collapsed under the lightning, both Hyugas saw Naruto, bathed in the light for one fateful split second before it engulfed him. The man walked up to the charred body and grunted in a surprised fashion, before kicking him out of the way brutally, gaining a soft sob from the terrified Hinata. Well, this kid would have been strong. A shame he felt like protecting 2 such weaklings as you Hyuga. Even in death he stopped my lightning arc from harming that girl even a little. Truly shameful, but no matter, I will take the Hyuga back with me now, she will receive plenty of pain while we travel. The man's dark eyes, the color of muddy water, visibly widened as his twisted mind began creating equally twisted images. He reached up and pulled off his hood, revealing a shinobi from the village hidden in the cloud, judging by his forehead protector. Well, best be off, things to do Hyuga to breed for the future of my village. With the same twisted, mad look in his eyes, the man reached out to grab Hinata, who was too tired to resist. Hiyashi watched, veins in his neck bulging as he attempted to fight off the paralysis of the arc jutsu that he hoped was temporary, to no avail. His daughter was going to be stolen from before his very eyes, and there was nary a thing that could be done about it. The leering man noticed a resistance on his outstretched hand. Glancing at it, he saw an inverted bubble of energy wrapping around his hand, effectively immobilizing his entire arm. A pain-filled mutter of, "You will never hurt my friend while I can draw breath," could be heard. The Kumo Nin, Cloud Ninja, looked over to the charred corpse he had previously kicked away. He saw a battered yet still breathing boy, with a hand outstretched towards him. His skin burned black and clothes melted to said skin, blue eyes shining with concentration, holding back the agony with sheer determination. No longer amused, the Kumo Nin attempted to force his way out of the restraining Chakra no Tate. When he failed, he ground out the words. "Damn Gaki, you are not even a shinobi yet, There is no way you can restrain a special Junin rank shinobi. There is just no way. Now be a good gaki and die. The Junin was unable to move, or perform jutsu with his arm trapped. Thus they had a little Mexican standoff. Hinata knew Naruto could not hold on much longer. He had used copious amounts of chakra earlier that day, modifying his jutsu for its current purpose, detaining someone. Straining and panting slightly, the boy continued his relentless defense, while staring at the man with undivided concentration. The chakra no tate started to warp under the pressure, twisting and expanding slightly. Beads of sweat ran down the Junin's face. His thoughts as the time were, "Can't believe this kid can hold me. He is basically a living corpse. But I can see and feel his strain, it will not be much longer now." Naruto was shivering uncontrollably. Bits of his charred flesh were falling off his badly burned body as he stressed it to and beyond its set limit in his efforts. The jutsu warped once more before it started to glow. As Naruto whispered, "Kitsune Kai," it condensed, then imploded. "Ah, you little, my arm, you will pay for that." The Kumo nin growled as he turned, pulled out a kunai and reached for the now prone boy. The shinobi knife extended shakily towards Naruto's throat, before halting, then falling out of a now limp hand. The wind whistled through the street, where there were 4 figures, only the 2 Hyuga standing. Hiyashi had been given the time to recover. He had used that time to deliver a silent and deadly palm thrust at the Kumo nin's heart. With that simple, elegant yet deadly move, it was all over. 2 Hyuga branch member guards came out to do their guard duty. Seeing the situation, they ran up to Hiyashi, who ordered them to take Hinata inside and set up a patrol along the Hyuga grounds perimeter. The proud man then walked over to the prone figure of our hero. He gently picked up the now moaning boy, before lightly jumping up to a roof and off to the hospital. While en route, the Hyuga head looked at the severity of the wounds. It did not look good for the boy. His chest had taken the majority of the shock, melting and fusing his entire rib cage together. Hiyashi assumed this was his demon's way of attempting to save the inner organs from major damage, an only partially successful gamble. The boy could barely breathe, due to the lung damage and his damaged neck, which had a huge chunk burnt right out of it. His arms, while also affected and burnt, were not in terrible condition, yet the legs seemed to be almost fine, except where his skin fused with the melted fishnet clothing. Upon arrival, Hiyashi rushed to the doctor who usually served the Hyuga main family. "Mito-san, I have a patient for you. He saved the life of my daughter, yet you know how he is treated here and elsewhere. Please, and you know how much it hurts Hiyashi to say that, help him." The doctor took one look at Hiyashi's serious face and nodded. "Hi, Hiyashi-sama, I know of his situation and personally feel nothing for or against the boy. I will be happy to treat him personally." With that, the Hyuga head put Naruto down upon an examining table in the adjoining room. As the doctor, known only as Mito, examined the boy, he inquired of Hiyashi. "What was he hit with?" "It looks like extensive burning damage. All wounds are cauterized, suggesting lightning damage." "Hi, Mito-san, it was a lightning-based jutsu from a Kumo nin." He stepped right into it, casting his own defensive jutsu, Chakra no tate. I have never seen the likes of it before. It even came close to blocking the whole attack. Making a skeptical noise, the doctor, butcher, they are all butchers, set to work. Separating the skin from the clothing was the first task, after a large needle filled with Panadine Forte, of course. Hiyashi left the man to his delicate, dangerous work, stating that he would check in the next day. In reality, he was planning a shinobi funeral for the boy. Having seen and felt the extent of the damage, Hiyashi knew it was unlikely for the boy to survive the night. The middle-aged man felt the least he could do was see that Naruto had the burial of a hero, even if in life he was treated as scum of the most virulent nature. Mito worked late into the night, accomplishing a large feat. He separated the boy's skin from his clothing, for the most part. Working on a stubborn piece located at his left leg, the doctor accidentally cut too deeply, and to his mortification the entire leg fell off. The stunned physician watched as the normal, slightly burnt leg shifted into a plastic and metal construct. With a start, the doctor realized that the boy had been wearing a prosthetic limb. Upon closer inspection, he noted the sole of the fake foot. Well, it'll be a son of a. It is a type of reinforced rubber for taking impact shocks. That is really lucky, it must have acted as an insulator from the lightning, minimizing much of the damage. Mito mused to himself. It must have been one hell of a technique, to still do that much damage though. I wonder what the boy has been through in his short life to have such damage inflicted upon his body. Reattaching the limb, by merely lightly pressing it onto Naruto's stump, Mito went about his work. He had to give the boy more painkillers every 2 hours, so he would stay asleep. He left the boy to a trusted nurse, loyal to the Hyuga clan, that is, to catch a few hours of sleep himself, with what remained of the night. The next day dawned bright and sunny, as if the Monday morning cared not about the previous night's activities. One Hyuga head told his daughter to remain in the compound, then go to the academy for the day. After your lessons you can come with me to see young Uzumaki. Until then, conduct yourself as the heiress to this clan and do what must be done. Hinata, losing whatever nerve she had displayed, bowed her head and mumbled, "Yes, Oto-san." Hiyashi attended a hastily organized council meeting, in which he explained the situation with the covert Kumo Nen. Unlike the last time a similar event had occurred, this was not their head ninja, merely a Junin on a secret mission. The Hyuga head outlined his plan for their response to the Kumo attack. It went something like this. As the village of Konohagore was no longer weakened by the Kyuubi no Kitsune attack, as it had been earlier, they would not listen to the village of Kumogore's demands. Instead, they would demand reparation of their own, in terms of monetary compensation, for a break in their tentative peace agreement. Also included in the bill would be the hospital fees of the shinobi injured in the conflict. With the threat of war, if not succinctly paid, of course. Hiyashi felt it was only fitting that the village of Cloud pay for Naruto's hospital fees and funeral, while Konoha profited from that same event. As Cloud was weakened from a recent failed uprising, they would likely bow to any demands Konoha made. As the saying goes, the boot is on the other foot now. Time for an ass-kicking. The council wholeheartedly supported this plan, greedy old men that most of them were. They further ordered, upon learning of the extent of Naruto's wounds, that the money all be made out to Naruto. Upon his subsequent death, and likely with no family or will, the money would go straight into the council's emergency fund. The Sandaime Hokage agreed, inwardly chuckling as he thought, they are underestimating Naruto's will to live, his spirit of fire. That will be to their own detriment, and Naruto's gain." Heading off to the hospital, at a more sedate walking pace this time, Hiyashi checked in on the boy, expecting to be told he had been moved to the morgue. Imagine his surprise at seeing a conscious boy, bandaged nearly head to toe, being spoon-fed by the attractive young nurse loyal to the Hyuga family. "Come on now, Naruto-kun, if you refuse to eat I will be fired and kicked out of my flat for not paying the rent." The young nurse pleaded, with trademark puppy dog eyes, prompting the scowling boy to open his mouth once more and allow the horrible slop to be placed in his mouth. The nurse's name was and is Mituki Laura, an orphan who enrolled in the nursing program early on, at the age of 8, graduated in an unheard of 2 years, nursing in the Konoha hospital ever since. She is now a very capable nurse at the age of 17. Like all people, Laura liked having and spending money. The Hyuga gave her money, in excess of her normal wage, to ensure her being their personal nurse when needed. Her silence and bedside manner were both crucial factors for the employment. To say that Hiyashi was surprised would be an understatement. Naruto should by all rights be dead now, yet there he was, grumpily being fed. Not to mention the pain from his burnt flesh should have had him incoherent, yet he seemed awake and alert. The nurse finished the feeding, gave Naruto an injection and gently told him to rest, which thanks to the injection, he did. She walked outside the room to talk to Hiyashi. "Hello Hiyashi-sama, it is an honor to see you here again. Do you want to know the boy's condition?" He replied, "Hi Laura-san, I would like to know how he seems to be in such good shape, considering his injuries last night." Laura picked up a chart, reading from it she said, "Hi, his recovery is nothing short of remarkable. Stretches of skin that were totally destroyed are regrowing, his rib bones have unfused, and seem to be patching themselves back together. We did have to amputate his left ear. It had melted over the ear hole, becoming a hindrance. Other than that, it appears he will make a full recovery. He might even be out of hospital in 2 weeks. He will have major scarring, especially on the chest and neck, but he will live without any more disfiguring injuries." Hiyashi, frowning, inquired, but I thought the boy did not have any disfiguring injuries from this incident, Laura-san. The woman looked at him for a few seconds in an evaluating way, before giving a small nod and saying, Naruto has a prosthetic left leg, Hiyashi-sama. It has a rubber base on the foot, which prevented much of the damage. Without it he would definitely have died. The somewhat surprised Hyuga shook his head and said, well, it is good that the boy lives on. I will check back on him in an hour or two, with my daughter, she has been quite anxious to see him after all. Laura murmured a, hi, Hiyashi-sama, as the proud man left the room, face once again blank as a politician's, as he indeed was. She left the sleeping boy in peace, who then cautiously opened a single eye. Seeing that the coast was clear, he sighed loudly. I didn't think they would ever leave, scarring eh? Well, I don't like mirrors, so it matters little. As he spoke aloud to nobody in particular, he did notice a slight rasp in his voice, not obvious yet existent nonetheless. Exploring his face with the tips of his fingers, Naruto did notice the bandaging all over it, preventing him from checking his ear in particular. Truth to tell, the loss of an ear really did not bother him much, as his recent amputation by his own backfired jutsu had been far more serious. After a boring hour or so, Hiyashi came back, this time with Hinata in tow. She fussed over him, as women of all ages do for men who manage to get injured, making sure his pillow was adequate and the like. Both Hyuga thanked him for his efforts, Hinata saying that he saved her life, Hiyashi that he owed the boy a considerable debt. The man told Naruto that he was welcome to the Hyuga compound any time and could also ask Hiyashi for anything he might need, now or in the future. After they left, Naruto actually did sleep, troubled dreams with the crackling of raw energy and the smell of burnt meat. Insert the mental image of a large, imposing man scraping a knife along a sharpening stick here, if you are so inclined. Naruto recovered extremely fast, in his words due to the noted lack of ramen, so fast that he was released only 3 days after being admitted. The boy was advised to keep to light exercise and not to strain himself at the ninja academy. He politely agreed with the doctor while inwardly thinking, I can and shall take care of myself, thank you very much. Walking with a slight limp out of the hospital on the cold, miserable Wednesday morning, Naruto was greeted with the sight of Hinata hurrying towards him. After confirming that he had been released, in contrast to running away, Hinata walked him back to his room. They went in and talked for a while about his one-sided fight. Nay Naruto-kun, you really did very well, to hold him off like that, he was a special Junin, one of the top cloud infiltrators. I think your Chakra no Tate needs a little special something though, when using it to block jutsu. Hi, I know you are right Hinata-chan, might even talk to your dad about it. He said I could ask and he obviously knows about my jutsu now. I might as well pick the brains of the finest and the strongest family of Konoha. Hinata was most uncomfortable with the idea of the Hyuga being the strongest. She believed their ways were too rigid and did not hesitate to tell Naruto so. When he inquired as to the why of that, she noted their reluctance to learn and apply new jutsu, or to use elemental-based jutsu. Their ways were all based on the Byakugan and the Juken. To be the best, one must have a speciality, but the term over-specialization comes to mind when thinking of the arrogant Hyuga. Hinata understood this on some level. She did want things to change, first by teaching herself new ways, assisted by Naruto of course, and second by becoming clan head. This would allow her to directly change the decrepit rules and traditions of the family, clan. Until then, the academy beckoned, so the two set off. Naruto decided to go and see if he could handle the physical requirements, if not he could simply bag sickness and leave. By now all of the shinobi in Konoha had heard of the altercation and Naruto's involvement in it. Hiyashi had made sure the news of Naruto's bravery spread over the village, to both shinobi and civilian. Arriving at the academy and filing into the class to his usual seat, next to Hinata and far away from Kiba, the blonde had caused quite a few covert looks and muttering, as he still had bandages over his face and left ear. The thick, ugly scars on his upper chest and neck were partially visible, as were the less pronounced ones on his arms. Naruto heard mutters of, the baka got hurt, wonder where, and, I heard he fought a Junin from Cloud, my dad said he held him off for a while. It must be a lie though, that kid cannot even use the Kawarimi jutsu. These comments made seemingly no difference to the boy, yet Hinata noticed the little things. Things such as the way he sat in his chair ramrod straight, stiffly, as if expecting attack at any time. There was also the way his eyes seemed to harden and become devoid of all happiness and life, blue orbs with hidden depths to entangle and entrap the unwary observer. The comments died down after Iruka came into the room, and after roll call he began his usual droning lecture on another subject that might have been interesting, if not told so poorly. After the stupefying lecture, they had the usual taijutsu lesson, only this time it was unusual in the extreme. One fighter in the top of the taijutsu ladder would face off against two who were doing less proficiently. As Naruto had not been beaten in some time with sparring, he was near the top in taijutsu. Therefore his match was against Kiba and Shino. The idea was not to use any serious attacks, like Kiba's Suga, only using the academy-taught basic taijutsu in tandem with the teammate to defeat the stronger foe. This was to promote teamwork and the ability to support another in battle. Also for the stronger, it helped when facing multiple opponents, as the best in Konoha are expected to do. Squaring off, Naruto knew he did not have the usual stamina or ability to take punches. He decided the only way to not get badly beaten was to use a seal-less chibi chakra no tate upon being attacked. The small wave would slow or block attacks as they came. If used with enough force they could even repel an attacker, allowing for an opening in which to attack. Not waiting for a strategy discussion with his partner Shino, Kiba launched himself at Naruto with the thought of beating the bandaged blonde uppermost on his mind. Meanwhile Shino watched Naruto to discern his style and any possible openings in his defenses. Opting for his usual method of opening attack, the elbow to the chest, Kiba was astonished when he seemed to slow down, before Naruto grasped the offending elbow, pulled up and kicked him in the gut with a straight shot of the left leg. Deflating like a windbag, Kiba fell to the floor, groaning, where Naruto nudged him out of the way with his toe. Shino, not having moved throughout the short and painful counter-offensive, flitted into action. He attacked Naruto with one arm after another, in a slicing manner, attempting to hit specific pressure points on the boy's chest and neck respectively. Once again, the offending appendages slowed down enough for Naruto to latch onto with his own arms, before pulling the expressionless boy closer. Grinning happily at Shino, Naruto moved his head back. Shino asked, in his usual monotone, "What now, Naruto?" In response, Naruto's head flew forwards, smashing his temple onto the other boy's face. Blood flew about as Shino had his nose scrunched into his face. Kiba, now recovered after his own little loss, attacked Naruto in a frenzied manner. Using his chibi tate, Naruto blocked or slowed all attacks, while proceeding to beat his opponent down. He finished with a similar move to before, catching both boys as they attacked and slamming their heads together, breaking Kiba's nose on Shino's forehead. Suffice to say both Kiba and Shino lost that little battle, without quite knowing why. Kiba had left the area, presumably to go sulk about his poor abused face. Shino chose to stay and talk to Naruto, after plugging his still leaking nose with 2 pieces of tissue. "Good fight Shino, your open-handed attacks are harder than I thought to block. You seem to have started on a good taijutsu style. You might have got me if not for that clown Kiba. I would hate to be on his team in 2 years' time." With a slight bowing of his head and a "HN," Shino agreed with the still bandaged blonde boy. The two left, walking side by side to watch the others as they fought it out. Hinata had finished with her 2 opponents by the time the boys came to observe. She had been facing 2 kuinoichi who were not strong or fast, but had learned to work as a team to defeat their opponent. They had almost won too, yet their reckless all-out attack faltered when they were both hit by mild Juken strikes, applied with the academy taijutsu. Hinata joined the boys in observing others. Sasuke had gotten a lucky matchup, that is to say he was fighting Sakura and Ino. The duck butt-haired boy had been subsequently lynched by Ino, as Sakura proceeded to yell at the aforementioned Ino. The 2 girls then attacked each other, rolling around on the floor in a cloud of dust, fists flying, cartoon style. Sasuke, watching avidly, though to the outward eye looked bored, occasionally nudged one or the other of the girls to keep their blood up, while inwardly thinking, "The longer they keep this up the less fighting I have to do." The spoiled little shit did not want to fight the girls, as he thought it would be a waste of time, so this little catfight was quite convenient for him. After about 20 minutes more observing, Ino and Sakura were still going strong, kicking, clawing and biting. The taijutsu practice ended and normal droning class resumed. Nothing more of note happened that day. Naruto decided he was not up to any more training for now and went straight home. Upon entering his abode, Naruto realized that he had nothing to do for the afternoon. His residence held no television, books or games that were not to do with training. He decided in the end to sleep the day through, and that was it for our lil slugger. Waking up in the morning, Naruto was greeted with a most unwelcome sight, that is to say a leering face, inches from his own. His reaction was priceless, shrinking backwards, with widened eyes, then expelling a chibi tate to repel the intruder, while groggily reaching for a handy bashing object. At this point an amused and slightly put out Anko spoke up. Well Gaki, I thought you blew off our sessions to play the sympathy card with Hinata, yet here you are, sleeping the day through. Guess we might as well train, eh? Naruto apologized, before stiffly sitting up and stating that he was still feeling terrible, and not up to any training. A pouting Anko seemed to weigh this statement in her mind, before grinning and stating brightly. When you are ready you know where to find me, in the meantime the morning is the best time for Dango. With an enthusiastic shout, Anko sprinted out of Naruto's apartment, presumably to find the nearest Dango stand and deprive them of their stock. Shaking his head and shuddering slightly, Naruto noticed it was still early by the dawning sun outside of his window. In an uncharacteristic display, Naruto yawned and laid down for more precious shut-eye. The boy spent much of that week sleeping and eating, only resuming light stretches by Saturday, even those were only light. His body seemed sluggish at all times, harder and harder to move at all. It seemed to be a delayed reaction of his central nervous system being zapped by the electrical current that could have flash-fried a chicken. Kiba had noticed this relaxed behavior during the academy. He decided to track and ambush Naruto that Saturday, to repay him for his broken nose and spectacularly blackened eyes. Sneaking along stealthily, Kiba relied on his sight and instincts to find the blonde as his nose was out of commission at that moment, It took about 3 hours from the morning onwards, but Kiba tracked the elusive blonde down, leaving his apartment. Kiba thought to himself, that lazy slob is only leaving his apartment now? It's 9 for crying out loud, at least this will be easy. He failed to note that Naruto had removed the bandages around his head and arms, though leaving the neck bandaged. Think Zabuza without the facial bandages as he charges the mob. This indicated he was feeling better. His injuries, battle scars, were now visible to some extent. His left ear was entirely missing, with massive scarring around that whole area, even disrupting the hair growth around it. Small scything scars ran down the right cheek, extending the whisker marks in a rather sinister manner. All in all, Naruto now looked the part of the demon of Konoha, as some villagers had labeled him. Elsewhere, the village council was undergoing a serious debate. Mishimo Kumamoto, a leading council member and a survivor of the Uchiha massacre, was pushing for Naruto to become the living weapon of the village. If he had his way, the boy would be their trump card in times of war. The old, yet still powerful Uchiha argued that war was inevitable. When such a time came, their village would need carefully honed weapons to fight with. His evidence was the Chakra no Tate Naruto had used, a powerful protective jutsu if used with proper care and good timing. As the boy had delayed a powerful Junin at his young age and non-existent experience level, surely proper training would turn him into an unstoppable wall, in between the village of Konoha and all hostiles. The Sandaime Hokage was doing his best to quell the argument, by stating that Naruto was already a nin in training, he would become a tool for the village in his own time. He further suggested that Naruto had created his own powerful jutsu, left alone with proper incentive to improve he could one day rival the Yondaimi's near incomparable strength. He further reminded the council that the fourth had created all of his own and best jutsu without unwanted help. Jiraiya of the legendary Sennin had been his mentor and only partner in that respect. As hoped by the wily old man, the council seized on this dangled carrot after some further discussion, agreeing to leave the boy be if and only if Jiraiya could be located and convinced to supervise the genin team that Naruto eventually would join. If not, the council would appoint their own choice to train the boy. Sarutobi agreed reluctantly, knowing that this was the only viable option. Meanwhile, with a certain one-eared blonde boy, Kiba tensed as Naruto came past the alley in which he happened to be hidden. The boy prepared himself, his hands grew claws and became generally bestial in appearance. Leaping out of the alley, he attacked Naruto with a silent scream of juvenile hatred. The blonde crouched as Kiba came. Kiba's outstretched hands sailed over the boy's head. Naruto then shifted forwards while still crouching and kicked Kiba in the stomach. Oomph! The scarred boy straightened slowly, with great dignity for one his age, and walked over to the now prone form of Kiba. Listen up, and listen good Kiba. I will not tolerate this any longer. If you have a problem with me, deal with it like a real guy, not a coward. We are not opponents, we are allies. How would you ever complete a shinobi mission with me as your partner? We would both die in that case, due to your stupidity. You do not like me, I return the favor, you will at least try and be civil, and I shall do the same, if not I might as well kill you here and now. You are useless to Konoha as a ninja with your current attitude. With that speech delivered in a flat voice, filled with open dislike, the blonde offered his hand to the glaring Kiba. Hesitation occurred for some indeterminable time while Kiba started into the swirling depths, think a lava lamp, of Naruto's eyes. Kiba took Naruto's offered hand, who lifted him to his feet. They shook hands once, pressure indicating that they still disliked the other, before they both walked off in opposite directions. The Inazaka had been planning to reject Naruto's peace offer, but after looking into those serious eyes he had realized the truth. A shinobi cannot be petty, allowing rivalry or jealousy to get in the way of business. Kiba had been acting like a small child, incapable of understanding or accepting any responsibility. But no more, now he would make an effort to at least tolerate the other's presence. After leaving that little scene, Naruto was accosted by the Hokage's assistant, a cold bitch of a woman who usually ignored Naruto in all things. She grabbed hold of Naruto's arm and said, "You will come to the Hokage, he wishes to talk with you." His arm was shunted out of the woman's grip by what appeared thin air, as Naruto replied. "Very well, led on Assistant-san." Seething inwardly, though her face remained blank, the woman proceeded to do just that. Checking regularly over her shoulder to ensure Naruto was still following, she led him briskly to the cage tower. An immense building, made from red stone, it is the symbol of the leader of the village and their power in said village. Currently used as the hub for shinobi to acquire and receive payment for various missions, it also doubled as a last bastion of defense in case of invasion. Many traps and wards could be activated to make the tower all but impregnable to any except for an elite shinobi army. Entering the tower, then after climbing far too many stairs, in his mind at least, Naruto found himself invited into the Hokage office. "Ah Naruto, it is good to see you. Especially after that incident earlier with the Kumo Nen. You seem to be in as good health as can be expected though, are you in need of any further medication or treatment?" asked the Sandaime, contentedly puffing on his pipe. "Domo arigato, Oji-san, but I am doing fine. Just a few more days of taking it easy and it will be training time again." Naruto said all of this in a monotone voice, as if the subject did not interest him. Lightening up some, he inquired, "What I would appreciate information on though, was how that particular Junin-level ninja got in our village undetected, not to mention spying on the Hyuga gates without being detected is a big deal, what with their bloodline right?" Sandaime put his pipe away after a serious look at Naruto, then chuckled. "Ho ho, you are learning Naruto. It seems that they have developed an electrical-based jutsu that hides their chakra system from all such seeking techniques, including the Byakugan of the Hyuga. We are attempting to recreate the jutsu with our own specialist team but so far have met with little success. If the situation changes, you and the academy will be the first to know, as when we can perform the technique, we will soon develop a counter to said technique." Nodding thoughtfully, Naruto then inquired politely, "Okay Oji-san, it has been interesting as always to talk, yet I somehow suspect you had a reason for calling me here. An explanation would be appreciated, I am a busy guy after all." At this, Naruto mimed sleeping and eating. This elected another chuckle from the third, before he got down to brass tacks, as they say. "Very well Naruto, the shinobi from Kumoger are known both for holding grudges and never stopping. A somewhat impractical approach, yet it helps Konoha stay in the lead. They will try to take Hinata again, as such an Anbu guard will be assigned to her permanently while she is outside the Hyuga grounds. The guard will make himself known to you today, So you will know him by sight and not attack him if you see him observing. This is all, okay? Naruto nodded obediently, so the Sandyami asked someone to please come in now. That someone was an average-height Enbu member with a shock of white hair, who nodded his masked head slightly in Naruto's direction, before intoning, "Yo." The Sandyami explained a little further.